My Psycho-Fiancé tracked my location just so he could do a pop-up and try to catch me in the act of doing something wrong. But despite the fact that I was literally going to get groceries, and I just so happened to have my phone in my purse so I missed his 10 phone calls, my fiancé is still acting incredibly weird. And I'm not sure what to do because we are scheduled to get married in 2026. Here's what's going on. I'm a 33-year-old female and my fiancé and I have been together for 7 years and we're set to get married in 2026. However, I'm starting to have some serious doubts because I feel like issues are coming back up that I thought were already resolved. Now, it's important to note that we share our locations and sometimes my location doesn't update on his end and vice versa, and it looks like it's off for some reason. He's responded to this happening very unfavorably in the past and would jump to conclusions and think that I'm out doing something malicious. We've talked at length about this, and I've communicated how his reaction when that happens is not acceptable, and he needs to assume the best intent. Now, things in this area have been good, or at least I thought they were. After work today, I stopped by the grocery store to pick up a few snacks, and I was planning on just running in and out because I wanted to get home. So I kept my phone in my purse instead of directly in my hand. As I'm going through the aisles, I hear a voice say, "Hey," and to my surprise, it's my fiance. I was completely taken aback because I just was not expecting to see him, but I was happy to see him nonetheless. I then quickly realized that this was not a random meeting. I could tell he was upset and he asked me why I wasn't answering his calls. Now, I had no idea he had been calling because my phone was in my purse, and I must not have heard it ring in the busy store. When I took out my phone to show him that it was in my bag and that this was the reason I missed his calls, I saw that he had called and FaceTimed me 10 times. He then said that my location was off, which I quickly showed him on my phone that it wasn't, but also that made no sense because how else would he have known that I was at that store? He then proceeded to silently follow me around the store as I finished getting my groceries and check out. We then awkwardly left separately in our own 2 cars, and he sees absolutely nothing wrong with what he did, and he feels it was justified because he thought something was going on due to the location being off and me missing his calls. Well, right now I'm seriously furious, and I feel like he had no right to act this way. It's completely unhealthy and controlling, and I honestly don't deserve it. So I really need to know, has anyone ever experienced behavior like this with a partner? Was this something you were able to work through, or did you find the courage to move on? Because right now I'm seriously starting to doubt everything and I just don't know what to do. Okay, dude, I've got to be completely honest, this is some crazy controlling behavior. Seriously, this guy literally followed you around and tracked your location, all under the guise of, "Oh yeah, you're doing something sketchy." Like, did he really think you're gonna go to the grocery store to, oh, I don't know, cheat on him, instead of getting groceries like a normal person? Like, what's going on right now? This is so stupid. It's also crazy to me that this guy's trying to act like, yeah, this is normal behavior. There's nothing wrong with this. I was just trying to see why you didn't answer the phone call 10 times. And it's like, dude, she was probably driving or doing anything else, and you're trying to be like, oh yeah, you gotta answer it right now. So I want to echo what other people have said in the comments section, and I'm not trying to tell you what to do with your life, but if I had a partner who was acting like this, I would be very hesitant to ever have anything to do with them. Like, that would be the biggest red flag you could possibly describe to me on planet Earth. So yeah, this is not something I would ever ignore because this is some crazy behavior. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My ex-girlfriend is demanding that I give her money because after she moved out into her own house, things have gotten really tight. And I'm honestly not sure how to respond without being rude because right now I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my girlfriend and I broke up recently, roughly 6 months after she moved into my house. Over time, the constant arguments and general differences in opinions on important subjects just became a burden on the both of us. She's been away for about 2 months now in another state, and she's been avoiding coming to get her stuff. She lived here rent-free, I helped her move in, and I even drove a moving truck 18 hours and packed the house myself. I bought her a car registration for $600 post-breakup just so she wouldn't have any legal trouble while avoiding coming home, which, by the way, I still have not been reimbursed for. And during our arguments, she made quite a few comments about how I choose work over fun. There were arguments about missing happy hours. There were arguments about the hours that I work and not being able to travel on a whim, and I just generally felt really unappreciated. Well, she's now asked me for financial reimbursement to help her enter the next phase of her life, and I'm honestly at a loss for words. I don't know what to say. I mean, the only things that come to mind are extremely rude, which honestly, I just don't want to hurt her feelings, but I also just want it to be over with. I'm not saying either one of us is right or wrong. I just want to move on without making an enemy out of her. So has anyone ever experienced this before? Because I seriously just don't know what to do. Okay, it is crazy to me that your ex is trying to be like, wow, yeah, I really need some financial help here. You know, after living rent-free and basically paying for nothing. It's like, dude, what's going on right now? You are literally not in a relationship with this man anymore. And she's trying to sit there and be like, oh, there's just costs incurred with me moving into my house. And like, I know for a fact if I was in that scenario, I would be like, okay, well, get a job. Like, why is this my problem? Why am I somehow responsible for your financial problems? Like, please make it make sense. So if I was in your shoes, I would be very blunt and be like, no, I can't help you, sorry. And then I would probably try to lose her number because this, in my opinion, is super toxic. My father passed away suddenly after my wife and I had our second child. But after my in-laws refused to help my wife out, they essentially forced me to come home to take care of her instead of grieving the loss of my father. And I'm now considering setting some serious boundaries with these people because right now I'm still very offended and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my in-laws stay with my wife and me for 3 weeks to watch our toddler, while my wife and I were in the hospital having our second child. Near the end of their visit, my dad unexpectedly became very ill, so I had to fly home just so I could be with him. My mother-in-law promised that she, if not also my father-in-law, would stay for a few days extra with no cost to them as they were staying with us. It's also important to note that she is retired and has no obligation for months at a time. Well, sadly, my dad passed away the first day I was back home. And then later that day, I was told my in-laws couldn't extend their stay. They had zero reason other than saying to my wife that they were tired, as if I wasn't caring for a newborn and watching my father pass away. And they basically said they wanted to go home. They haven't explained it to me or apologized for this at all. As a result, I had to leave my hometown and my grieving mother just 36 hours after my dad passed away. I had to care for a newborn and a toddler while still in complete shock and utter exhaustion just so my in-laws could go back to their cushy life. They want to come visit in less than a month, and when I told my wife I'm not comfortable with that, given what they did, my wife said it made her uncomfortable and overwhelmed. She agrees that what they did was awful but won't say anything about it to them and expects me to just accept them visiting despite how I feel. So would I be the jerk if I set a boundary and I insist I'm not comfortable with them coming so soon? Or perhaps even just until we have a conversation. It's not just that they left me high and dry when I needed them most, it's that they didn't even reach out to me to explain or apologize. I'm just very hurt and I'm very angry and I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, this is really some toxic stuff going on from the in-laws because holy crap, the least you could do was stick around for like a few more days while the original poster grieves the loss of their father. Like, I'm kind of baffled they would be this heartless. Like, what's going on right now? The fact that they try to be like, oh, we're tired, we're gonna go home now, all while this guy is literally sitting there being like, holy crap, my dad just passed away and these people are doing this now. Like, if I was the in-laws, I'd be like, absolutely, we're gonna step up and we're gonna help out. We literally are retired and we have no obligations. Like, what's going on right now? Like, these circumstances could not be worse. So personally, with all things considered, no, I don't think you would be the jerk if you set some kind of boundary because this is absolutely uncalled for. And the fact that they basically screwed you over, in my opinion, is unacceptable. An entitled jerk who's known to be a serial cheater around town finally cheated on the wrong person, as the lady he cheated on stole his phone and finally outed him on all of his social media accounts, proving once and for all that he's been cheating for a long time, thus ruining his reputation entirely. Here's what happened. Okay, so today I woke up to the craziest tea ever from my girlfriend. This guy that she knows is a serial cheater. He cheated on multiple women and even on her friend. He used to insult her body and say things like, oh, she doesn't have a motherly feeling to her because she's completely flat, and stuff like that. He also sent some similarly really weird messages to my girlfriend while he was dating her friend, and I honestly don't know if he thought he was flirting or not. Like, that's the type of guy he is. Very sneaky, very creepy, and you can just tell that he does nothing with his life because this crap is all he spends his time doing. So my girlfriend's friend dumped him, obviously, because he cheated on her with someone else. Then later on, he dated multiple other women, also cheated on them, and basically became known as that locally around the area. And trust me, that's not even the tea itself, because recently he cheated on the girl he was dating for a while and she just completely lost it. She must have stolen his phone or something like that because there's no other explanation. She then posted from his Instagram account revealing all of it. The cheating, the text messages from other women, sending and receiving sketchy pictures, basically every single receipt. The wildest part is that she also outed him as being bisexual. She revealed his DMs and comments in certain subreddits, as well as his DMs and him sending sketchy messages to guys, with him sending stuff that like really proved that yeah, he was cheating a lot. And basically, he was flirting with both men and women on Reddit. He had a fake Instagram account just for sending sketchy messages and used to send profiles from his main to that account so he could message them later. And this even included mutuals and some of his girlfriend's friends. Well, me and my girlfriend disagree on whether he deserved all of that because I definitely think he did, because the way he acted was completely insane. Okay, honestly, this is one of those situations, as someone put it in the comment section, where if you're gonna mess around, then you're gonna absolutely find out. And in my opinion, I'm right there with the original poster. This guy absolutely deserved this. He's flirting with both men and women all over the place. He's being a serial cheater and he's treating people like crap. Like, dude, this is so uncalled for. This really is obnoxious. So in my opinion, I think people like this deserve to get outed and they deserve to get in trouble, especially if they're gonna be this disloyal in their relationships. My mom has a fit about a career opportunity that I have, as she is viciously against me moving out of state to take this opportunity. And right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, I want to get this out of the way now. I'm a 27-year-old male and I love my mom for what she's done for me my entire life. But for the past year, I've been attending trade school for a job in the electrical field, and I've applied to join a program to become a food industry technician. This issue stems from the fact that this program will take place in the state of Indiana, and I would prefer driving there. It's an 11-hour drive, give or take, but I think it's better than leaving my car to be moved around every week when I'm not there. For reference, our house lacks a garage and cars are ticketed on street cleaning days. I would be there for about 3 months for training and then get contracted to whatever company hires me, which may involve me having to work in any state that they're located in for at least like 18 months. Well, here's where the problem comes in. My mom has been giving me grief about my choice to go into this program. She often says things like, "Oh, your car isn't good enough to get there," despite my car being perfectly fine. I mean, it was involved in a hit and run, but functions just fine and the gas money shouldn't be an issue at all. She will also say stuff like, "Oh, you won't even know anyone there. These companies will scam you with contracts. You need to stay close to your family." I could go into how this was basically her mode of operation for a lot of things growing up, and she's definitely tried to gaslight me about many things in the past and even now. I've lived a large portion of my life trying to please her, as well as get validation despite a lot of harsh treatment over the years. Even after this, I do still love and care about her, but I've also made it clear to her that I want to leave our house and our home state as a whole. I still intend on going out to Indiana and finding a well-paying career in the field that I chose. I'll still have that sense of apprehension and anxiety doing it, since I've never been there and I've been that type of person for as long as I can remember, but I just need some time away from her. So am I wrong in feeling this way? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, it kind of seems like she wants you to leave the car so that she can use it, as she probably doesn't have one of her own. And also, why is she so obsessed about you like leaving the house? Does she really not want you to be successful? Like, what's going on right now? So no, in my opinion, I think you're making the right choice, and this is obviously the next step of what you need to do. And if I was in your shoes, I would not allow anybody to hold me back, especially your mom, who, in my opinion, sounds incredibly controlling. My psycho entitled client thought that hiring me as a consultant meant that he owned me, as he literally made me more uncomfortable than I've ever been in my entire life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work as a consultant in corporate strategy, and I've dealt with pushy clients before, but this one was on a very different level. 4 months ago, a CEO hired me to help restructure his company, and from the start, he was just too familiar. Late night texts that had nothing to do with work, joking about how I should be his work wife, and a lot of lingering stares during meetings. I ignored it at first because I wanted to keep things professional, and I've sadly gotten used to men in power thinking boundaries don't apply to them. He used to be my classmate back in university, and we definitely had a history. He had made a pass at me back then, but I refused, and when I turned him down, he did what most boys his age typically do, spreading rumors that I was cold and frigid. Now that nonsense actually followed me for a while and cost me many friendships. When I actually saw his name on the client list, I almost declined, but money is money, I thought, and I told myself that I could handle it. Well, the entitlement still dripped off of him. He acted like paying my fee meant that he owned my time, my weekends, and even my own personal space. When I told him bluntly to stop texting me after 9:00 p.m. about dinners that we should have alone, he blew up on me and said that he owned my loyalty because he was giving me this opportunity. Well, the fight really came along when I finally cut the contract short after he cornered me during a site visit 2 weeks ago. He leaned in way too close, made some disgusting comment about how he always knew I'd want him still eventually, but I I shoved him off. Security actually had to get involved because he started yelling that I was trying to sabotage his company out of spite for rejecting him years ago. He's even started to say he's not going to pay for the work I already did, claiming that I breached the contract. And while my firm is backing me up legally, the audacity of this man absolutely blows my mind. The entitlement, the lust, the grudge, this is all just rolled into one toxic package. Oh man, this is so disgusting and weird. People who are this controlling always seem to become like CEOs in some kind of way, and that doesn't seem like a coincidence. Like, that really does seem like it happens all the time, and that's just really weird to me. But more importantly, the fact that this guy was like,
"Oh yeah, you always wanted me. I knew you'd come back eventually."
Like, dude, what is up with this guy? Come on. University was probably like, what, 20 years ago? And this guy's still sitting there acting like this? So good for you for getting this guy in trouble and making a scene, because these kind of comments and the way he was acting was just completely unacceptable, because you definitely should not be expected to deal with that. Am I the jerk for not wanting to ride in the trunk of a coworker's SUV just so we can complete our daily commutes? Because after I said no, my coworker started to say that I was being inflexible, and at this point, I really just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 31-year-old female, and I carpool ride every day to work with my coworkers. There's 5 of us total, and our commute takes about an hour each way. We used to work from home a couple times a week before we had to return to the office full time. A couple weeks ago, one of my coworkers, who we will call Ray, decided to rent an apartment closer to work and said he couldn't carpool anymore. This would increase our daily cost by about $2 since we divide everything together. Now, I was fine with it, but one of my coworkers, who we will call Sam, was completely against it. So she then just started looking for someone else to ride with us or to give us a ride. Sam eventually found a guy, who we will call Henry, willing to drive us every day since we all live close. So it was decided we'd start riding with him Monday. But the problem was that Ray wouldn't move until Thursday. So that meant that 6 people will have to fit into a 5-seat car. Sam's solution was to have one person ride in the trunk and then just rotate through everybody, so it wasn't just the same person every time until Thursday. Now, I said I didn't think that was safe and that we should just keep carpooling normally until Thursday. Sam said it was okay and that I wouldn't have to ride in the trunk, but that we had to start with Henry on Monday since they agreed. Well, today at work, Sam asked to talk to me. She then told me that I am inflexible about the seat assignment and that although I wouldn't have to sit in the trunk, I also won't get to ride in the front seat until Ray moves. Now, I was taken aback and again said I felt the trunk was unsafe and that if it was a problem, I could find another ride home. She said that wasn't necessary and that she just wanted me to know how inflexible I was being. Another coworker was there and started backing up Sam, which really surprised me because this coworker has always been late to our commute home more than once. I've been the one to tell our coworker to wait for her because leaving her would mean a 2 to 3 hour bus and subway trip home. And it's like, okay, well, they don't know I've done that, but they still are talking about being flexible. So needless to say, I was flabbergasted that they were calling me that, especially since my shift starts at 8:30 in the morning and theirs starts at like 7 o'clock in the morning, Monday through Thursday, and 9 o'clock on Fridays. So that means I've been getting up early to make sure they aren't late. But on Fridays, I'm always 15 to 30 minutes late because they're the ones that don't want to get up early on the day they can sleep in. Now, my manager knows this and thankfully doesn't reprimand me since I'm there at 7 o'clock every other day, but it still makes me very uncomfortable. The company also sent out a form for some workers to fill out if they want to work in a new building closer to where we live. Well, the problem is not all of us can sign up. All 5 of my carpooling coworkers can move, but I would be left out and need a new commute. And they know that, but they still plan to move anyways. I'm not planning on staying at this company long, as I've been job hunting for a month hoping to find something remote or even closer to home. So with all that in mind, seriously, I need to know, am I the jerk for not wanting to ride in the trunk of a car until Thursday? Because right now I am super frustrated and I just don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, I can't believe anybody in this situation is trying to be like, oh yeah, the trunk is fine. You need to stop being inflexible. Like, what's the issue? Dude, what are you talking about? That is so dangerous. If someone rear ends you, then guess what? The person in the trunk is gonna lose their life. Like, dude, what's going on right now? Why would you advocate for that and then be like, oh, you don't want to do that? Wow, you're being so inflexible. Just get in the death trap already. Like, what's the problem? Like, that's basically what they're saying right now. Like, come on. So no, you're not the jerk for turning this down. These people are crazy for even asking that or even suggesting that anyone do this. And if they can't understand that, then seriously, that is their problem and not yours. An entitled jerk blocks my driver's side door and prevents me from getting in like a normal person. So I get revenge by parking my car in the exact same way, forcing this guy to realize that what he did to me was not okay. Here's how I did it. Okay, so I went to the mall yesterday to go to my local Barnes & Noble's. This mall's Barnes & Noble's parking area is like always full, but I found a cute little spot and I parked my happy little car in it so that I can get my stuff done. Well, once I had just finished spending a ridiculous amount of money on books I'll never read, I come back to my car only to find that a car had parked next to mine, and they were so close that a child would not be able to squeeze in there. I do the crawl in through passenger side maneuver, very annoyed, and I think to myself, well, that was really annoying. Let me just leave and get out of here. But you know what? That's when I realize, why should this jerk get the pleasure of entering their car all happily when I did not? So I take a gamble that the car on their driver's side will leave before them. I'm waiting outside, and I kid you not even 2 minutes later, someone's happy butt was walking out of Barnes & Noble's, presumably with books they will never read as well. He gets into the car next to this jerk's car and then leaves, and all I wanted to say to this person was, man, I love you so much. I then get back in my car and I pull into the spot so close that a child would not be able to fit through it. And trust me, it took some effort to park that crappy. And I wait again outside, of course. Then, about 15 minutes of Reddit scrolling later, this smug person walks out of Barnes & Noble, but it's right at this moment that his smugness is instantly crushed when they realize, oh no, my car is so close to this car that a child could not fit through it. And at this point, I'm thinking, oh man, I could do this all day because I am smiling ear to ear. I then watch him struggle to get from the passenger side seat to the driver's side seat because, oh yeah, I forgot to mention, this guy is not skinny at all. He was tall, maybe like 6 foot tall, and I'm like 2 inches over 5 foot, and I did the passenger to driver's side gymnastics in like half a minute. Meanwhile, this guy struggled for like 3 minutes trying to get his legs to the other side. Once I see him almost done with the gymnastics, I walk over to my car and I get in and reverse out. I make sure to glance at him and smile and then give him the finger in the process. He looks bewildered, already enraged about his 3 minutes of struggle, but he was probably wondering, well wait, why would I flip him off? But eventually, a look of realization crosses his face. And I'd like to think that his idiot self just realized that my car was on the other side right before. So the moral of this story is that you definitely need to think before you park, because if you're not careful, this kind of thing could easily happen to you. Okay, I love this so much because, dude, I can't stand when people park like that. So good for you for getting some revenge because this guy absolutely deserved it in my opinion.
This is why you never threaten someone permanently stuck in survival mode. Years ago, I was living with a couple of friends and lost both my job and my place to live within the same 24 hours when the economy went down the toilet, and the bank foreclosed on the owner who owned the house that we were staying in. We had about 2 weeks to get out, and then I ended up homeless and living in my car for 2 years. That's another story entirely. The point, however, is when living in a large city in a vehicle, your survival mode kicks in constantly. You're always worried, you're always cautious, and in the event something happens that's a threat, you usually think of the most effective, brutal, and quickest way to remove it as a threat. As a result, even years later now that I'm stable, I don't really have the ability to gauge an appropriate response to a threat. Maybe that's why I went overboard here, but I'll share this story and let others be amused or pass judgment as the case may be. While I was living in my car, I developed a relationship with someone who was a bit more stable than I was. She didn't really care that I lived in a car, as I was always presentable and was able to hold down temporary work. Nobody really knew that I lived in a car unless I shared that information with them. She was big on helping people and was genuinely a good person, as I thought at the time. We had a falling out and just gradually lost contact. Our relationship was more of a passion thing. We remained friends on Facebook and she was fairly popular on there with about 500 friends. This is important later. About a year after the two of us broke up and about 6 months after I had last spoken to her outside of a few casual comments and likes, I was doing much better. I had just started a new job that I was about to go through training for, and afterwards would be out of the car and into a more permanent residence. I had done a lot of work towards that point and things were great. I was at a Kinko's using their internet on my laptop and my phone rang. It was her. After a very brief exchange of pleasantries, she gets to the point. Her current boyfriend got her pregnant and left her. She needed somebody to take her to the abortion clinic, and since she was the poster child perfect girl to her circle of friends and family, she couldn't ask any of them to do it. So she was asking me. On one hand, I was perturbed her that this was the first time we had spoken in a long time, and this was the only subject she felt was important enough to call me on. On the other hand, I try to be a good guy, and even though it backfires, I was raised that way. But in this situation, I really couldn't help her because I was supposed to drop my car off at a friend's house the next day and hop on a bus to another state for my orientation in my new job. Even if I wanted to, which I really didn't, I couldn't. I told her as much, and then that's when it hit the fan. She started screaming at me on the phone, acting hysterical, crying, telling me that I was a horrible person. I had to help her. I didn't care about her, etc. By this point, the other people in the computer area are hearing her scream at me over my phone, and I'm getting quite a few stares. I tell her in a tense voice that I had to get off the phone and for her to send me a message. Some of you may be getting ahead of me here and see where this is going and think in advance that I am the jerk, but please reserve judgment. I promise it's worth it. My Facebook chat window starts lighting up with more insults. I realize this may bite me in the butt. Remember how I don't respond well to things I see as threatening and start to steer the conversation asking her details, and she gets dragged along. I confirm in the chat that she was pregnant. I confirm in the chat that he ran out on her. I asked why he ran out on her as I thought the two of them were close, and she tells me that there was a chance that it wasn't his. I tell her that once again, I can't help her as I need to catch a bus tomorrow morning. Up to this point, I'm willing to wish her luck and let it go. I start a new life tomorrow. She then drops this bombshell on me. She says, if you don't help me with this, I am going to tell everyone that it's yours and that you raped me. Oh hell no. She did not just say that. And then I realized she said it over Facebook chat. Instead of warning her, instead of telling her to piss off, I instead start thinking about what a false rape accusation would do to me on the eve of everything that's about to change from my life. I have one thought, born out of survival mode that got kicked into high gear. Destroy this bee, and I know how to do it. I ask her if she's serious when she knows there's no way this kid is mine. She says she doesn't care. I ask her who she thinks is going to believe her. She says it's my word against hers, and who are people going to believe? Her or some homeless jerk who lives in his car? Knowing I have enough ammo, I pretend to reluctantly relent. I tell her, dang it, fine. I'll help you, but I can't take you to the clinic tomorrow. It will have to be later this week. I have to change my plans. Let me call you tomorrow. She agrees. I then get to work. Within a few minutes, that chat transcript has been sent to about 100 people on her friends list, and I tagged all of our mutual friends. The chat was also linked on her church page and her employer's page. I also sent it to her parents for good measure as an afterthought. Almost instantly, my phone starts to blow up. I shut off my laptop, shut off my phone, and went out to my car to spend my last night in it. There's not much that I can say about the fallout that will do it justice more than what's probably playing in your heads. Sides were chosen, legal threats were made, firings happened, death threats were thrown around. Needless to say, her reputation was completely ruined to the point that she not only had to delete all forms of social media, but she had to move clear across the country to get rid of the stigma from the small town that she grew up in. Over the top? Maybe, but it was so sweet. It warms my heart on cold winter nights. Am I the jerk? It is horrifying how in some of these situations, bringing up false accusations is just an easy go-to. I think a lot of people in these stories that reach for those false accusations don't really understand the devastation that can lay to somebody's life. The original poster here was just trying to catch a break. He was living in his car for so long and he just wanted to have something work out, and then she threatens the one thing that will probably destroy all of that. How can she really expect a kind outcome when you're playing with fire like that? I would not be surprised if she thinks that his reaction was worse than her false accusations, and that is just delusional. And then as she's doing it, she tries to look down on him by saying who would believe a homeless jerk, just to put him down one last time when this guy's already been through enough. It always rubs me the wrong way when people think of homeless people as lesser than human or just lesser than in general. There's almost always a lot more to the story than you can ever realize just by seeing somebody in the current position they're in. But she uses that as some sort of secret weapon so that he has to comply to her, or at least she thinks he does. So I hope this guy was able to get on his feet, and I hope this woman never does this to anybody else again. But how would you handle this situation if you were the OP? Let me know down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. My husband just admitted to me that he has been cheating on me with his cousin for the majority of our marriage. I'm a 40-year-old woman and my husband is 39. My husband's cousin was recently killed in a car accident 3 weeks ago. This has made my husband visibly depressed and a lot less like himself himself lately. Tonight, when I got home from work, he had our 2 kids go spend the night at his mother's place and had made us dinner. After dinner, he sat me down and told me that I needed to prepare myself for what he was going to say. He then proceeded to tell me about his affair. To sum things up, he essentially had been doing bedroom things with his cousin since she seduced him when she was 13 and he was 16. These carnal activities went on through their adulthood up until he started to date me. After we got married, things didn't happen between him or his cousin until around 4 years into our marriage, when she supposedly convinced him to continue their activities on the side. For context, we've been married for a little over 15 years. This has continued up until 3 weeks ago, as you can imagine. He told me to take it as I will and he'll accept anything I choose to do considering our marriage. His cousin apparently was a lot more than some fling. I never would have expected my husband to be cheating. He never did anything that would give it red flags, like coming in late or leaving a hair of another woman around. I'm at a standstill and I'm not sure where to go from here. I haven't been able to say anything to him after he was so blunt about it. I'm still crying some now. I don't know where to go from here. Any suggestions are welcome. Jumping into the future, there is one update. I have thought a lot on the suggestions that I've been given and decided to go forward on some. I've talked with my mother about the situation and she's agreed to take in my children until the situation is dealt with. I've also approached my husband about divorce and put my demands about wanting full custody of our children, as well as the house and other things. He hasn't put up a fight regarding any of those and has agreed to it. It's been really hard to swallow all of this, and I'm looking for a lawyer now to help with the divorce. My mother has also suggested to keep the real reasoning of our divorce away from our children as long as possible, especially my eldest daughter who's 14. This will be my second and last post on this matter. I again want to express that I appreciate all the helpful comments and suggestions. What should I do from here? So for 9 years, the husband was habitually cheating on his wife with his cousin. That is a long time to be cheating on someone and not have it uncovered. I feel like in almost every cheating situation, no matter how slick you try to be, eventually it bubbles to the surface, and sometimes you are the one that bubbles it to the surface, like in this case. And I can't even imagine how devastating that is for the wife, the OP here, because she has spent a good portion of her life with this man, only to find out that he has betrayed her for years and years, almost a decade. And that goes for whether it was the cousin or not. The main reason why the cousin part is so shocking, besides it literally being his cousin, is that she never would have seen it coming. It was family. So it's even more shocking than it would be in a normal situation, and she's only that much more blindsided. Where do you go from here? How do you rebuild? Not financially, but emotionally. Those are going to be some tough questions she has to answer very soon. But let me know what your thoughts are on this, and what would you recommend? Am I the jerk for not wanting my fiancé to dance to a love song dedicated to her late fiancé at our wedding? Before we met, my fiancé Kayla was engaged to a man that she had dated for 3 years who died in a traffic accident. I had never dated a woman who had that kind of loss before, so I've always been learning as I go, but I've tried to respect that he will always be a part of her story, and I accepted her relationship with her late fiancé's parents with open arms. They stayed very close, and by the time we started dating, they were basically like a second set of parents to her. Kayla's parents, her real parents, and her late fiancé's parents are all amazing people, so I consider myself pretty lucky to have 2 great sets of in-laws. Our wedding is coming up in May, and Kayla told me that after her father-daughter dance, she would like to have a second dance with her late fiancé's father to the song Vanilla Twilight. She asked me if I was comfortable with that, and I didn't want to be that guy and say no, so I said yes. But it really makes me uncomfortable that she would be dancing to a love song dedicated to another man at our wedding. I am happy to make space in our lives for his memory. A photo of him is on our mantle at home. We make it a point to commemorate his birthday and the anniversary of his death, and I feel like I'm being understanding and supportive when she has bad days. And I am 100% fine with having his parents at the wedding because, like I said, we are all a family. But I also feel like our wedding is one day that it is all about our relationship. Am I the jerk if I ask her to reconsider this dance? What are the best compromises here? Jumping into the future, there is an update. 2 months ago, I married the love of my life. I was thinking about this thread the other day and how it went and where my head was at when I made it. I thought you guys might like an update. A little anticlimactically, the thing that I was stressing about was a bit of a miscommunication, which probably happens a lot. Kayla wanted to dance with her late fiancé's, I'll go ahead and just call him Luke from now on, father at our wedding. And Vanilla Twilight was an example of a song along the lines of what she wanted, not the set in stone top choice like I had thought. I, and a lot of other commenters in the original thread, spent a lot of time over analyzing the lyrics to that song, looking looking for a hidden meaning in every word. While it turns out she hadn't put that much thought into it, other than this is kind of a sad song that I like. We got together that night and she had made several playlists of possible first dance songs for us. Songs for when she walks down the aisle, music to play at the reception, and the song choices for her dance with Luke's father. We spent hours listening to all of them and talking about the wedding. We even made a tournament-style bracket for our first dance song in her journal and put songs head-to-head against each other until the victory emerged. At the end, we talked about the wedding and our relationship, Luke and their relationship, and grief. What it was like when she lost him and what it was like for me when I lost my mom at a young age. What a family is and all the things we were hopeful for the future. We stayed up until 3 in the morning just talking and planning and laughing and crying a little, and I'm so glad for it. After getting bombarded by dozens of different opinions from dozens of different people earlier that day, I had been worried that I was going to have a conflict with my fiance shortly after our wedding, but there was no conflict, just a pure memory. After that night, I started putting in more effort to be involved with the wedding planning process and actually asked for things that I wanted, which Kayla actually really appreciated. We also took a long weekend a couple of weeks before the wedding to go on a camping trip together just for the two of us, which I highly recommend to anyone who is getting married. Overall, there was a complete flip in my feelings leading up to the wedding, from being somewhat insecure and excited but nervous to being completely at ease, excited, and feeling stronger about my relationship than ever. The wedding day itself was really wonderful and worth the wait. Kayla and Luke's father had their dance to Lean on Me, and I also had a dance with Kayla's mom, and it was very emotional in a good way. I really felt that that day was a celebration of our love, and I was genuinely happy that Luke's parents were there to celebrate along with us because they are very much members of our family, and I wish I had the space to describe all the ways they've been there for us through the years. My amazing wife is who she is because of all the experiences that she's had in her life, and I don't want to be the kind of man who asks her to pretend that she has never loved before me or pretend that her grief is something that is or should be done with forever now that she has me. I just want to say how glad I am that we shared that night together and that the wedding was nothing but love and celebration. I never thought that I could be so happy. So what would you do? From the first post of the update, the OP basically did an about face. He completely just turned around and changed his perspective. It doesn't really even sound like he brought it up to her. Yeah, they obviously talked about everything until 3 in the morning, but it doesn't sound like he explicitly stated what the issue was. And maybe that was because whatever they talked about in those conversations until 3 a.m. was enough to put him at ease without having to confront her or get in some sort of conflict situation. Either way, it sounds like it all worked out for the both of them. But if this was you in this situation, would you be okay with your husband or wife dancing a song dedicated to their late partner? Let me know down below. My meeting with my CEO has crushed me. I don't know where to write this and I do not know what I'm looking for. I basically just have to write this down somewhere to process it. I work for a company in Germany. I am new to this company, 4 months here and also alone in my whole department. I am building it up. Last month we acquired a new company, a French company, so we have a culture difference here. I was told that I will also need to work for that company. I do speak French, not perfect, but well enough to talk and joke around. The French CEO was visiting our office this week and today he requested a meeting with me. The meeting was horrible. Basically, it was just him taking our work culture and me apart, all while smiling at me the whole time. We have home office, which is unreliable. We have flexible work hours, which makes no sense. I have no rules, no key performance indicators, which is chaotic. However, at our company, everything runs smoothly, and honestly, I am successful at my job. He talked to me the whole time as if I am 12 years old. I am 32 years old. And then at the end, he asked me if I even have any experience whatsoever. I have 4 years experience. And the last thing he says while smiling is, "This meeting has shown me that I clearly need to speak to your CEO." It honestly felt so condescending. I'm a very fragile person. I doubt myself a lot. I am my own worst critic. This has crushed me. I can't switch off his voice in my head. I feel worthless. Why did he smile the whole time? Why did he treat me like a child? Why do I let it make me go crazy when I normally get good feedback? I should be able to trust myself in my performance, no? Also, the whole meeting was in French. I do understand almost everything, but why not speak in a language that is foreign to both of us, English, instead of making only me uncomfortable? He used difficult expressions and asked me, "Do you understand?" several times. During our first meeting ever, I had asked several times if we could switch to English and he just said, "But you know French. This way you will learn." So I felt too shy to ask again. But to me, this is such an odd way of thinking. It felt like his way of gaining more power. Jumping into the future, there is an update. The conversation with the French CEO had really crushed me. I was crying a lot. Then 2 months after, I was in a meeting and I reacted apparently weird to a specific task that I was given related to the French company. Immediately, our CTO came to me after the meeting and asked me me why I reacted the way I did. I basically just said, should I confirm that with the French CEO before doing that? Anyway, the CTO ended up pressuring me into telling him what happened. I had one tear rolling down my face because of the pressure. He was shocked and asked me, in an ideal world, what I wanted to make this better. I just asked, I personally don't want to work directly with him. The CTO said, done. 2 weeks later, I was told that the French CEO had his decision-making power over my department taken away. He is no longer involved. Fast forward to last month, my company's CEO came to me at the end of the workday. It was only him and me. He told me that he heard about how the French CEO had treated me back in February. He hugged me and said that no one is allowed to treat me this way. Then he said that they have decided to find an agreement to part ways with the French CEO. They are still in discussions but wanted to tell me already because of what happened. He confirmed I do a wonderful job, exceeded expectations, and if ever someone talks to me the way that guy did, to go to him directly to have this sorted out. As you can imagine, I am super happy at my current company. So, what would you have done? This honestly just sounds like some sort of power trip that the French CEO was on. Maybe he thought that he could just come in, lay down the law, and everyone would have to respect him. Kind of like a tactic people use when they enter prison. Find whoever they think will be a threat in the future and preemptively go after them. There's no mention of whether or not the CEO did this to other people, but I'm assuming that's not the case, or we probably would have heard about that. But let me know how you would handle this if the new CEO of your company started treating you this way. Am I the jerk for kicking a server out of my wedding? I'm a 25-year-old female and my husband is 30 years old. We got married last Friday. We planned our dream wedding down to our dream catering company. The wedding was beautiful. After the pictures, we headed down to our cocktail hour, and that's when I saw her. My guests were all told to wear dark colors, so my husband and I stood out. I also asked my guests to wear minimal makeup. I had assumed that applied to the staff too. The server, a 19-ish-year-old female, had on clearly too much eyeliner. She also had diamond studs in her ears, a flashy ring, and one of those ugly nose studs. The staff's uniform was a black long-sleeve shirt, but on her, it was too low cut and her pants were far too tight. It was super distracting. She was walking around serving drinks and talking to my guests. I asked another member of the staff to speak to their boss. When their boss came out, I pointed out the server and asked that she be dealt with because she was super distracting. Their boss apologized and called the server back into the kitchen. Not even an hour later, the server was back out serving food for dinner. I called the boss over again and asked if the server could work in the back or go home. Her boss said that they were short-staffed tonight, so she would see what could be done. After a couple of hours of not seeing her, I saw the server again behind the bar. I called the boss out one last time and told her if the server didn't leave, I would be calling the cops. The boss finally relented and told the girl to go home. My husband and mother-in-law said that I was acting crazy and that I probably got a poor college kid fired over nothing. My mother and maid of honor said that it's my wedding so I can do as I please. It's my wedding and I don't want somebody overshining me, and the server should know she's at work and not dress up so much. I do feel kind of bad because she was pretty young. Am I the jerk? Imagine spending the limited time and energy caring about whether or not somebody is wearing makeup on your wedding day. This does not sound like somebody I would want to be married to. Sometimes people are just neurotic and they can't help it. So at first I was giving the OP the benefit of the doubt that maybe that's just how they were. But then she threatens to call the police and says that this server is outshining her. At that point, she's actively making decisions to be like that and wasting time on her one and only wedding day to try and get this girl fired or removed instead of enjoying that precious time with her friends and family. So what do you think? Jerk or not a jerk, and why? I own 2 locations of a store. I usually work at one, so when I went to the other, an employee there didn't know that I was the owner. She tried to accuse me of stealing from my own store and told me that she was the owner. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. About 7 years ago, when I was about 19 years old, me and 3 of my friends opened up a cell phone store. We basically repair phones, sell third-party contracts, and sell accessories like screen protectors and cases. As the business grew, we wanted to expand, so about 4-ish years ago, we opened a second store on the other side of town. It was one company with 2 locations. I was the one pushing the opening of the new location, so it was basically my project. So I was at the new location more often than not. After 6 to 8 months of running the new location, business finally stabilized and was standing on its own 2 feet, so I wasn't at the new location 24/7. At one point, one of my partners who ran the older store went on a vacation, so we agreed I would work at the older location a few days a week. While he was gone, the other partner who wasn't on vacation would open up the store in the morning and stay there for a few hours with the employees, and I would arrive later in the day after opening up the other one. When I arrived, one of my partners was on the phone in the back talking to one of our wholesalers, so I left him to it and just decided to look around the store, as I haven't been there much over the last few years, and the time I did spend there was mostly 10-second visits for deliverers and such. Here's where the story starts to get good. As I'm looking around, this girl started to watch me. If I walk from one end of the store to the other end, she kind of follows me, pretending she is doing inventory or something. All I thought to myself was, okay, that's kind of weird. She was a new hire, so I never really met her before, but I assume she recognized me or something, since there are some pictures of me and my partners hanging around the back. So maybe she was just nervous to meet the new boss. I was about to walk up to her and introduce myself when a customer came in looking like he needed help. I approached him and started talking to him, but before I could react, she stopped the conversation with the customer and helped him herself. After he left, she came up to me and said,
I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. You don't work here and you're making me very uncomfortable creeping around. Please get out of my store now.
I thought, what the heck, and decided to tell her who I was to see exactly what she think is going on. I asked her what she meant, and she said,
I saw you when you came in, and I'm pretty sure you put something in your pockets.
She went on to explain that she is the owner of this place and doesn't want any trouble. She just wants me to leave so there won't be any issues. She was saying all this around the time my partner got off the phone and overheard the end of it. I was holding back the biggest grin, and so was he. And then he approached us and explained that I was one of the owners and her boss. Her face turned red and her whole attitude changed instantly. This all happened about 2.5 years ago, and we still joke about it. But now this 5'4" redhead girl, who was about to call the cops on me for just looking around my own store, is now my wife. Our first kid, who is due in about 3 months, is going to hear this story for the rest of his life. This story was actually unexpectedly wholesome. It's not often the person that's creating the conflict in the situation ends up marrying the person that's telling the story. The most funny part to me is that this kid is actually going to be so sick of hearing this story throughout his entire life over and over again.
Did you know your mom thought that I was stealing at my own store? She told me she was the owner.
So let me know if you would marry the person that accused you of stealing at your own store down below. Am I the jerk for laughing at my mother-in-law when she ate my special snacks and got way too baked? My wife and I just moved back to her hometown. We love living in a big city, but we had agreed when we got married that when we wanted to start a family, we would move to a small town. It sort of sucks, but I am only 45 minutes away from a theater and good restaurants. It's not like we're in the middle of the woods. We live in Canada. Herb is fully legal here. I like to make herb butter and cook with it. I make brownies or fudge, and my wife and I both partake. Well, her not so much right now because she is breastfeeding. My wife insisted that we give her mom a key for emergencies. I disagree, but I lost the vote. So we talked about it, and I said I was fine with it, but it was only for emergencies. She wasn't to use it to come over and clean up or anything like that. Her mom agreed, and we gave her a key. Well, she followed the rules for about 2 months. My wife is out of town in the city for the weekend visiting friends. Since it is a 2-hour drive to that side of the city, she's just staying there. I came home last night and found my mother-in-law high as a kite in my living room. She had decided since my wife was out of town, I needed a home-cooked meal. One thing led to another, and she found some fudge. She was so baked that all she was doing was staring at the TV. Indica will do that to you. I called my wife and laughed my butt off. She's giving me a hard time for letting her mom get like that, and for laughing at her mom. My mother-in-law is currently resting in the guest bedroom. My wife's stepdad came to get her, but she is not moving. We had a few brewskis and watched the Jays get destroyed. She came into our home and ate my stuff without my permission. I'm not really upset. She is super helpful and she has always been nice to me. I just think it's hilarious. But my wife says that I'm a jerk for laughing at her mom. Jumping into the future, there's a small update. I just talked to my mother-in-law. She absolutely knew what she was eating. She just hasn't had any in a while, and I guess was expecting more of an experience like Cheech and Chong, not the genetically modified hybrid that I buy. So am I the jerk? So the mom knew what she was eating when she was eating it? I mean, at no point does he say that the mom was upset about the outcome of what happened. It was only the wife that seemed to be upset that the OP was laughing at the mom, which is a tiny grievance in the grand scheme of everything. My assumption up until that tiny update was that the mom ate it by accident. And maybe part of the reason why she's not upset is that she's probably more worried about whether or not the OP was upset because she went into the house when she said she wasn't going to and ate something without his permission. But let me know what you guys think, jerk or not a jerk, and understand why. My parents have taken me out of their will in favor of my sister. Am I wrong to be so angry about this? I'm a 23-year-old male, and my parents, 58 and 63, have taken me out of the will in favor of my 26-year-old sister. Recently, I was helping my parents with doing a bit of late spring cleaning and throwing out a lot of old rubbish when I came across what I assume is the most recent copy of their will. I didn't mean to look at it, but when I moved it, I noticed the beneficiary section of the front only had my sister listed. Then, I know it was horrible of me to do, but I decided to have a read through it. I'm not in it at all. My sister is listed as the sole beneficiary. She will get the house, their life insurance policies, savings, car, absolutely everything. They aren't rich people by any means, but due to the way property prices have risen since they bought their house in the 80s, this probably comes into a total of about £500,000. They have always had a thing with favoring my sister a bit more than me, giving her extra attention and stuff, but I've never really minded. She is a bit of a screw up, and if I'm honest, she has needed the extra attention. I'm not gonna lie either, my financial situation is a lot better than my parents. I'm engaged, and together, me and my partner, no kids, make about £45,000 a year. My sister is a single parent of 2 children, a deadbeat dad, and no child support. She earns about £16,000 a year. I know that is a lot of a gap, and I would understand if they left her with a greater share to help her out more, but leaving me with nothing just seems so harsh. Whilst me and my fiance do earn more, we aren't exactly rolling in money, and even if they only had left me 20%, it would still be more than enough to help me start to buy my own house. Obviously, this is all hypothetical as they are both perfectly healthy and have a long time in them yet. It just seems harsh that if they were to die tomorrow, my sister would be set, whilst I would be left with nothing. Am I right to be so angry about this? Should I confront them about it or not? I know it's not my money at all, but she is a terrible daughter to them. Over the years, she has lied to them, stole money from them and me, and had to be bailed out, fines paid for illegal substance charges, etc. She barely even finished school as well, so while she is financially worse off, it's only because she has made herself so. On the other hand, I visit them all the time, help them out with whatever they ask. I went to university, which they had always wanted me to do. I paid for it 100% by myself with no help, and it just seems like they are punishing me and rewarding her for being such a failure. For some additional information, with me they have always had a parenting style of letting me make my own way. If I wanted something, I was expected to do chores and get a job to pay for it. I don't mind, and it's made me more responsible. My sister, on the other hand, they always bought her what she wanted and never really expected as much from her as me. What should I do? Jumping into the future, there is an update. Thank you all for your responses. I think the vast majority of you understood what I was upset about, with only a few idiots thinking that it was about money rather than validation of what I had always believed a bit, that they prefer my sister. I wanted to get this sorted out as soon as possible, so I booked the afternoon off work and I went around to see my parents, and I learned 2 new things about myself from them. Number 1, I was an accident. Apparently, after my sister, my mom had a miscarriage and they decided not to try again, and then a year later, along pops me. Because I was unplanned, they hadn't really thought through their finances, and so for about a year and a half, my dad had to work 2 jobs and has always felt that I made him miss out on my sister growing up, and that because he rarely saw me, he has never really connected with me. As for my mom, the previous miscarriage had put her off on having children. She was content with her little girl, and by then, age 39, was quite happy to be done having children. Number 2, they are disappointed with me. They don't like my fiance. They don't like that I live a 40-minute drive away. They are sad that I chose accountancy instead of doing a law degree, but most of all, they are disappointed that I am not closer to my sister. That is, friends with a girl who spent most of her life bullying me, who has threatened them appallingly, who stole money from them regularly until she moved out, and who I was persuaded to lend £2,000 of my savings for university so that she could clear some debts. She never paid that back, and I had to get into a lot of debt myself to get through my final year. It's not even like I am horrible to my sister now. I love my niece and nephew and I spoil them all the time, and for their sake, we'll help her out from time to time with money for bills and food. Apparently this is why I am not in the will, and never have been, except when I was younger, where custody of me would have been given to my aunts until I was 18. They have, quote, never really seen me as their son. I was a bit too distant and self-reliant, and apparently, quote, made it easy for them to love your sister more. I'm not gonna get anything, as they don't don't really view me as a part of the family. Me going away for 3 years to university made it worse, but it's something that they have always felt. They asked me if I felt that it was wrong what I did and said if I could persuade them otherwise, they would change it somewhat. My sister would still be the main beneficiary, but I would get something from them. I know you guys will probably be disappointed with me for my response, but I just left. I told them that I didn't care about the money at all, and if they cannot see me as a son, then I no longer see them as parents. So in conclusion, I'm excluded as my parents are unhappy with my life choices, despite never telling me so before. Also, I was unwanted, and so they have never connected with me or viewed me as a part of the family. Because they were so focused on my sister, I became self-sufficient and grew up faster, and that made them feel more distant. My sister means more to them than I, and they don't want to change their minds or try to work things through. I have no parents now. However, a positive note, my future in-laws are awesome, and I have been calling her mother, mum, for a while now, so I do get some kind of parents. Jumping roughly 10 years into the future, there is an update. Just posting this as a little update. I found this post and managed to remember the old password. I am now 33 years old, happily married, 2 beautiful daughters, and running my own business that I started during the COVID lockdowns, which has basically helped us become fully financially independent. Zero contact with my parents or sister these past 11 years. My parents are still alive, and as a result of insane house price increases in the UK, they are probably worth closer to £1 million now, and I'm fairly certain that my sister is waiting for them to die. From what I've heard from other people, her behavior improved. No more stealing, etc., but she's still broke and in a dead-end job because she virtually has no qualifications to get anything better and no drive to improve. The only person I'm in any contact with is my nephew, my sister's son. He's nothing like his mother, absolutely brilliant mind and currently at university studying math, and my wife and I help him with his living expenses because he wouldn't have been able to go without it, and to be honest, with his mind, it would be a waste. So am I the jerk for zero contact for all these years given the circumstances? It's not often that we get to see an update more than 10 years later about the same subject. On one hand, I'm happy that the OP was able to build what sounds like a very fulfilling, happy life. On the other hand, it's sad that the parents would ever look at their own child like this. I know some people in the original post thought that maybe he was exaggerating because he was emotional and making it sound worse than it was, but the fact that he came back 10 years later to say that he's had zero contact with him makes me think that he probably wasn't exaggerating. I don't think you cut people out of your life for that long unless they've seriously done something to hurt you. The reasoning the parents give is just weird. Regardless if the child was an accident or not, that shouldn't even make a difference, first of all. But the other part of their reasoning was that they had a hard time connecting to him. Yeah, they had a hard time connecting to their own child who was a product of his environment that you put him in. Of course, there's always going to be an element of bias to anything, but it seems pretty clear that the OP did want a relationship with his parents, but his parents saw him as a mere disappointment. And I don't think there's any way that he could have lived his life and not been a disappointment to them based on the way that they're defining him being a disappointment. It feels doomed from the start. But anyway, I'm happy to hear the OP is living his best life now, and hopefully it only gets even better. But let me know how you see the situation down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for hating my special needs sister? I'm done hiding it. When my younger sister was born, she almost died from hypoxia. She suffered severe brain damage to the point where doctors doubted that she would survive. She has survived to 16 years old now. However, she is as close to brain dead as a living person can get. She can't move, she can't communicate, she can't eat or drink on her own. She has no control over her bowels, so she has to wear diapers. She will never get better, and she will never live a normal life. Despite that, my mother has ruined our family, hoping she will have a miracle and recover. My mother has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on my sister. Everything from wheelchairs to doctor visits. We had to live in a 1-bedroom apartment for 11 years because my mother spent all of the money she made on my sister. Nothing she bought made any difference. She will always be a drooling mess. Since my mother believes she will get better, she made me treat her like she was a real sister. I lost all my friends growing up because my mom made me take her everywhere I went. If I told my mom I was going to the park, she would say,
"Oh, a park, that sounds nice, like something Jess would like. Take her with you."
Not once did she stop to think about how absurd she sounded talking to her. One time, my mom took her to a movie theater. They made it barely 30 minutes through the movie before staff kicked her out because my sister was making so much noise, coughing and choking on her saliva. Despite all this, I somewhat tolerated my sister until a few hours ago. I mentioned to my mother that I had planned a date with a girl that I met at work, and my mom said,
"That sounds fun, but I'm having coffee with a friend from college, so can you take care of Jess while I'm gone?"
I told her that I couldn't because of my dates and suggested that she hire a babysitter. My mother then said that I should just take her with me, and then I exploded. I told her how stupid she was for suggesting such a thing. Bring my severely disabled, crippled sister along with me on a date with a girl because you are too lazy to hire a sitter? How crazy are you to think that that's a good idea? Every moment of my life has been about Jess. I'm not supposed to have a career or a family of my own because I need to take care of Jess when my mom dies? My mom even discouraged me from going to college because then I wouldn't be able to take care of her. I told her how much damage she has done to the family because of my sister. We struggled financially my entire life, not because my mom is low income, but because she spent all of our money on Jess. We drove a crappy 1996 Subaru Outback for years, and my mom, quote, couldn't afford to buy a new car. But she had no problem shelling out thousands to see a specialist doctor who will say the same thing every other doctor has. My sister is a glitch. She is not supposed to be here. She will never live a normal life. There's no reason she shouldn't be put in a home. I'm just so frustrated right now. I'm thinking about cutting ties with her and reconnecting with my father. My dad divorced her once he realized that the rest of his life was going to be taking care of Jess. I can't fault him. My mom forbade me from contacting him, but he's not the bad guy here. What should I do? Jumping into the future, there is an update. Thank you for all of your kind words. I realize now that my emotions should be placed towards my mother instead of my sister. As for everyone who says I should contact my father, that is my plan, but he's not easy to reach. I haven't spoken to him or seen him for a very long time, and he lives across the country. I don't have any way to get his number or email address, so I'm looking through Facebook and Instagram to see if he may have an account I can message. I also don't have anyone on his side of the family who I can ask to get us in touch. As for my living situation, I'm still living at home. I plan to stay for a while longer until I have saved enough money to afford an apartment or enlist in the Navy. I work part-time while I'm in community college, so I'm not making much money. I hope I will have another update in the near future, and I hope things will get better. Jumping into the future, there is one final update, and it is shocking, so if you want to skip this part, just jump to the next story in the video. My mom is dead. I came home to a bunch of police cars around my home. She did it to herself with a rope, and a neighbor saw her from the window. I didn't get a good look at her, and I'm glad that I didn't. I don't think I could handle seeing anyone like that. The last couple of days, she seemed stressed out, but I didn't expect this. Right now, plans are getting set to place Jess in a home. She will have around-the-clock care. I'm not sure what stage of grief I'm at right now. I have a place to stay for a while, and I'm getting my finances in place. I miss my mom. She wasn't a good mom, but she was my mom. I tried reaching out to my father through a family member on his side. To make a long story short, my father basically said that he had moved on from us, and that he didn't want me intruding on his new family. Pretty much what I expected, but it still hurt to hear my dad say he wants to forget about me. I'm staying at a friend's house right now. I'm working and I'm doing school. Things are still rough, but I'm pushing through. Thank you for all the well wishes. What should I do? The ending to this was a lot darker and a lot more sad than I expected. There was clearly a lot more going on in the mother's mind that we didn't ever get a chance to see. It's hard to speculate on things like this without knowing, because it could be for any number of things. It could be because she felt hopelessness because her daughter Jess was going to be like that for the rest of her life, and she was coming to terms with it at the same time that her son wanted to leave and cut all ties with her, leaving her to bear the entire responsibility of Jess by herself. From the way the OP tells the story, from the highlights that we get of the bigger picture, it seems like that's maybe the case, or maybe it could be something completely unrelated. We'll just never really know. As much as I feel for what the mother is going through, doing this to yourself and leaving your son behind is going to be something that he will probably never heal from. If any of you guys have ever experienced this, I think for most people it's something that sticks with you for the rest of your life. Sometimes people call this the God-shaped hole, which for a lot of people makes them become religious, and for other people it makes them fall prey to overusing substances. Everyone's different, obviously. So let me know your thoughts on this story down below, and what advice you would give to someone in a position like this. A Karen goes after a Disney cast member and only stops when she thinks she got what she wanted. But it turns out she fell for a trick. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. I was working at the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular, or Epic as it was known to the cast members, and we had already closed the theater for the start of a show. When the theater gets to max capacity, we legally can't put more people in there because of fire code, etc. This woman barrels up to me, gets within 6 inches of my face, and waves her paper fast pass ticket in my face. She demanded to be allowed into the show and screamed that her child, a little boy, no no more than 6 years old, needs to see this show or his day is ruined. She was screaming so loud, veins were popping out of the front of her head. I stood there, calm and collected, explaining to her that the theater is full and we can't let anyone else in. She pushes past me with one arm, holding her child's arm in the other. She marches straight for the ropes that block the entrance and tries to hoist her son over the rope. Before she gets that far, a manager walks up and puts his hands into the air to try to contain the situation. He offers to get the kid an ice cream and provide VIP seats to the next show if she calms down and comes back later. After screaming about how rude I was to her, which I was not, she accepts the token of kindness. My manager turns to me and asks how long my shift is today. I told him I was off work at 6:30. He nods and tells the irate woman that he will have me personally escort her to the VIP section down front. He writes her a ticket voucher for the ice cream and seats, and she fumed off with not even a thank you. My manager turns to me and apologizes on behalf of her. Then he asks me, how many more shows do we have today? I look at the clock and realized it was after 5 p.m. and well in the middle of our last show of the day. I looked at my manager as a sly smile crept across his face. He had just given an entitled parent a VIP pass to a show that won't happen. The respect I already had for him just skyrocketed through the roof. I was long gone by the time she came back, but I would love to imagine the look on her face when she came back at 7 for the show. Kid got an ice cream and mom got mad. It was a win-win. Am I the jerk? Sometimes when people freak out on employees like this, they forget or don't care that the employees are people too. It's almost like they look at them as some sort of inanimate objects, like it's a robot talking to them and they can just act however they want, or that the employees have some sort of personal stake in it. And that's why a lot of times jobs like these feel dehumanizing, because that's how some people treat you. But all that said, what the manager did was obviously very clever, but I can't help but think it's just going to be kicking the can down the road, because I cannot possibly imagine a scenario where the Karen here just says, oh, the show was canceled, I guess I'm fine. I'll leave now and forget about all of this. What's probably realistically going to happen is it's going to pass the buck to whoever has to deal with customer service later on. But if you were working here at this place and you were the manager, how would you handle the situation, and jerk or not a jerk, and why? Let me know down below. An entitled woman thinks that I am a waiter when I'm not and demands that I take her order. When I tell her no, she steals my notebook and tackles me to the ground. A little bit of a backstory here. Me and my friends were going out for lunch, and the people that were waiters always had a white shirt and always seemed to have jeans on. I was wearing a very similar getup of a light gray shirt and some Calvin Klein jeans. Okay, on with the story. Today I was going to meet up with a friend at a restaurant that I had been to a couple of times and knew the people who ran the place. Me and my friend had just sat down at the table when I realized I had to pee really bad. I asked him to order me the deluxe burger combo with a Coke if the waiter came back before I came back. He said okay, and I went to the bathroom. After I came out of the bathroom, I started walking towards a table that I was seated at. On the way there, I heard a lady's voice go, and I just walked by thinking that she was talking to somebody else at her table. But I hear a scratching noise of chairs on the ground, and a couple seconds later, feel 2 fast taps on my shoulder. I turn around, and this is where it goes down.
Mister.
I turn around and say, yes?
May I take my order? It's getting busy and I'm not sure where my waiter is.
I'm not your waiter.
Oh, but obviously you are a waiter. Look at your clothes.
Yes, I do look like the other waiters, and I do understand why someone would be mistaken, but not this mistaken. So I tell her, yes, I may look like one of the waiters, but I am not a waiter. I try to walk off, but this woman forcibly tugs on my shirt, pulling me back hard.
I want you to take my order. I am getting hungry and I want my food.
I already said I'm not your waiter. Now shove off. This rude lady is visibly angry and yet again tugs on my shirt to pull me back, but she makes me tumble to the ground. I fall on her and she goes down with me.
How dare you? I want to speak to your manager.
Her husband says, rude lady, maybe you should calm down. He doesn't exactly look like the other waiters.
Shut up! I'm trying to take our order.
But
Shut up!
At this time, people are starting to notice what is going on and are watching with intent, including my friend.
Speaking of, where is that pad thing that all the waiters seem to have?
I've already said, I am not a waiter. She then looks intrudingly in my back pocket and sees the sketchbook that I always carry around with me. I'm an artist, so it's always good to have one. So whenever an idea pops into my head, I can draw it on the spot. I also carry art materials with me at all times, but those are in my backpack, which I left at the table. She goes and grabs the sketchbook out of my pocket and starts flipping through it.
There it is. I'll just do it myself. What? Why are there other people's orders in here? And why are there drawings?
She says it like it's a bad thing to have drawings in a sketchbook, and it also clearly says sketchbook on the front. Give it back.
No, I'm going to report you to the manager for not taking orders and drawing on this notebook instead. I'll get you fired.
She had a devilish grin on her face and starts walking towards the other waiter in the room at the time, but my friend stands up and walks over to the rude lady.
Hey, I'll give him his notebook back. It's his, it's not yours.
My friend knows how much that sketchbook means to me and is the only person I know who would do that kind of thing. He takes it out of her hands and gives it to me.
Here you go, man.
Little did we know, another waiter in the room at that time had seen the whole thing and went to the manager. The manager came back into the room and starts talking to the rude lady. Me and my friend take the opportunity to get out of the restaurant while the rude lady is busy. A couple hours later, the manager contacted me. I know her from high school, we went to the same one, and told me about the rude lady and said that she is not welcome in the restaurant anymore. I just now realize I never did get that deluxe burger combo that I wanted. So, what should I have done? The implicit question in this whole thing is, would you do all of that to a normal waiter? The excuse can't be, I thought that was a waiter, if you would never do that to a normal waiter. Would you really grab a waiter's notebook? Would you scream at them, berate them, or grab them to the point that they fall on the ground? Yeah, maybe you would if you're a total jerk, but a normal person wouldn't do that regardless if they were a waiter or not. She does basically tackle the OP to the ground. And I think for some people, that's when all bets are off. Not everybody would be as peaceful as the OP was in this situation. But let me know how you would handle this down below. Am I the jerk for refusing to drive my girlfriend around anymore? My girlfriend and I have been together for 8 months. In that time, I was in an accident and my insurance wrote off my car and I only got $2,400 from it. It's not enough to buy a working car and I've been saving to buy a better one, although it will take a few months. I asked my girlfriend to borrow her car and she agreed if I drive her to work every day and then pick her up since she needs to go to work every day too. And I have to be the designated driver during our dates and even girls' night, which is about every 2 weeks. So for the last month, I have to get up at 6 because my girlfriend's work is at 7, drive her there, drive home, get ready for my work at 9, then I have to pick her up again at 4, using my lunch break and then drop her home and get to work again and come home at 5:30. It's so much work, not to mention every date night I drive, so I never get to relax. And when she hangs out with her friends, I have to drive her there, usually at 6, and pick her up again at 9 or 10. Bus routes take an hour and 45 minutes to get to my work, so that isn't an option. But her work is much closer. It would only take her 45 minutes to get to work by bus. I've asked her to take the bus so I can use the car for a few months while I save up and I'll pay for the insurance and gas. But she refuses, saying it's her car and if I'm not happy with our setup, then I can take the bus. She is so selfish and not willing to compromise. I've tried to get her to agree to take the bus 2 to 3 days a week, but she just won't and just tells me if I don't like it to take Ubers. An Uber to my work and back would cost $110 and I only make $200. It's not worth it for me to even go to work. I'm pissed and refuse to give her the keys, saying that she can take the bus that day, and she grabbed my wallet and used my credit card to get herself an Uber without my permission. She screamed at me to give her back the keys, but I've hidden them and now we're at a standstill. Am I the jerk for refusing to drive my girlfriend around anymore? What? How is this not the most obvious jerk behavior? He begged to use her car, didn't like the arrangement, and now is just refusing to give her back the keys because he doesn't want to drive her around? This is some delusional, entitled behavior. She helped him out as much as she was comfortable doing and he immediately tried to take advantage of the situation. I get that it sucks to be driving all over the place all the time, but she also has to live with not being able to use her own car. Both people have trade-offs in this situation, and she doesn't even need to take that trade-off. Maybe you guys see this situation completely differently. If you think he's in the right, let me know down below, jerk or not a jerk, and why. Am I the jerk for telling my mom and stepdad the real reason I was upset? I am a teenage girl and I was born when my mom was 18 years old. I see my dad dad about 3 days a year at Christmas. My dad doesn't want me as much as he wants his other kids, but I try not to take it personally. My stepdad, who's been in my life since I was 5, is really nice to me, but I don't think he would care if I didn't exist. But he makes my mom and little brother, my mom and stepdad's biological kid, so happy and does a lot for me. And for that, he means everything to me. My mom is pregnant again, and this time I get to have a little sister. I'm just a little nervous, but my stepdad hasn't said anything about having his first daughter, so I really do appreciate him being sensitive to me, even though I don't think he considers me to be his daughter. My mom is excited for another daughter too, and has been shopping for clothes and putting together a nursery with me because I am really good at art and am painting a mural for my sister. She keeps saying things to me like,
I am so grateful to be able to give all this to the baby that I wasn't able to give to you.
and that she is blessed and that she doesn't have to do it alone, and that she's really excited to see my stepdad be a dad again. I know I'm being selfish, so please don't think low of me because of course I want my mom to be happy. But when she says things like this, I feel like I am worth less and I am a burden. And then I feel bad for feeling bad because I want my mom to have a good life, and she did at least stick around because she could have left me like my dad did. Painting is a really therapeutic thing for me, so I've been hiding away painting at the nursery. At dinner today, my mom asked me why I've been so quiet, and I told her about my feelings, and she got sad, and my stepdad had to comfort her. I told her that I love her and I was so grateful that she is my mom and for all that she's done for me, but she was still upset. I feel like the jerk because I knew she would get sad when I told her my feelings, but I told her anyway. I think that hurting someone's feelings on purpose is the worst thing you can do, but I know it's important to be honest, so I'm really conflicted. Can you guys tell me if I am being a jerk, and I will make my mom and stepdad breakfast in bed to make it up to them and finish the nursery at night to surprise them. A few hours later, there was an update. I went to talk to my mom, but she was sleeping. My stepdad asked to talk to me. He said he never wanted to put this on me, but it was the time. He told me that he loved me and that I am his daughter, no questions asked. He said he didn't want to talk to me about being my dad because he didn't want to bring up bad feelings for me about my real dad. He wants to adopt me, but didn't want to pressure me, and if he did, my biological dad would have to sign away his rights. He was worried that my biological dad would, number one, not put up a fight and that it would hurt me, or number two, fight but not want to see me anymore and hurt me, so he was avoiding the topic. I said I want him to be my real dad and that I want his last name. He said we will see what we can do, and if it doesn't work we can try and hyphenate, and I can still use his last name as mine on my jerseys and stuff for soccer, and that as soon as I turned 18 we would change it. He told me he would take care of me forever and that he is so proud of me and that I have never been and never will be a burden. He said I don't need to be so nice all the time, and if I'm an evil teenage girl, he'd still love me as much as he does now. He also told me that he never wants me to feel pressured to babysit because even though they are young parents to me, they are still my parents and it's their job to raise us all. Jumping into the future, there is a final update. I talked to my mom this morning and she said she wasn't mad at me, she's just mad at herself. She told me she wishes she could have given me more, and I told her that she gave me more time with her and that was enough for me. She said she had no idea how to be a mom when I was born and doesn't know how I turned out to be so good, but she is happy. She told me that I better be selfish today because she wants to go shopping and buy me lots of things. She said I have never been a burden and that I'm the best thing that's happened to her. She said I should go to therapy because being a people pleaser is bad. Also, my mom and dad called my biological dad this morning and he agreed to sign away his rights. I got a little sad and cried a lot, and I don't know why because I wanted him to sign them away, but my mom and stepdad hugged me a lot and we are going to have a party tonight with both my mom's family and my dad's family. My dad's family, especially my grandma and grandpa, are really excited that I am finally going to have their last name, and grandma has sent me pictures of gold necklaces she wants to have made for me with my new last name. So in the end, do you think I handled the situation right? This one tugs on the heartstrings. There's something that's so intense about having that perspective, being that young, and just wanting so bad to feel like a member of the family. And the stepdad adopting the OP here is pretty much the ultimate symbolic moment of that coming to be. I do completely understand why she would cry when the biological father just chose to relinquish all of his rights to her, because even though she obviously wanted the stepdad to be her dad, how could that not hurt to have your biological father point blank, clear as day, put on paper that he no longer wants to have any parental rights to you? It's better than the alternative where he just keeps her in this endless limbo where he doesn't sign her away but he also doesn't want to be her father. But still, How could it not hurt? All things considered, I'm glad it worked out the way it did, but let me know how you see the situation down below. The amount of time my girlfriend has spent sleeping has made me stop loving her. I sound awful, but you have no idea. She has always slept more than me. That's fine. Lately, it's just been too much. She falls asleep at, let's say, 10 p.m. and then wakes up at noon the next day, sometimes even after 2 p.m. Then she takes a nap 2 hours later for between 3 and 6 hours. I think my final straw was yesterday. She woke up at 9, took a 6-hour nap at 11, then after waking up at 5 p.m.-ish, cleaned for an hour, then took a 5-hour nap after that. She spent 11 hours of her daytime sleeping. I'll get hate for this as well, but it's affected our bedroom life. Every time I say I'm in the mood, she just falls asleep. And I don't mean she says not tonight and then falls asleep. I mean she just falls asleep. One time it was the afternoon we both had off and I suggested it. She was excited, went to bed, and I went to freshen up a bit. I came back 3 minutes later and she was passed out. I get I'm not owed anything, but I'm having a dry spell because she just sleeps. I keep telling her this isn't normal and she needs to see a doctor, but she refuses. She says I'm controlling because I can't have her all the time. She seems to think it's normal for a person to sleep 20 hours a day. I just stopped caring now. I can't leave her, but she makes me feel ignored because she chooses her bed. A few have hearkened on the bedroom life that I mentioned. No, it is not my only concern. It was the most reoccurring pattern. We've had dry spells, some for 2 months, and there's no issue. She could say no and then I'd be fine. The difference is her saying no versus her saying that she wants to, then falling asleep within 3 minutes every time. There's other issues as well. She'll just forget to feed the cat, do dishes on her day to do dishes, and has me cook almost everything. The difference is that those can be on and off, where some days she does and others she doesn't. Jumping into the future, there is an update. I didn't expect this to blow up, but it did. I wanted to clarify some things first. We're both 28 years old. I work full time. She had a full-time job, but she quit 2 months ago. Since then, she's been looking for work, but the sleep issues started 2 weeks ago. My biggest mistake was mentioning our bedroom life, as people took it to mean that I cared more about that than her. It was the easiest thing to show how my frustration had built up. Obviously, I care about her health too. I said before we've gone for months without it, and I've had no problems. And even if we did do the deed, I would still be concerned. But I get how it comes off, and that was my mistake. As for the people calling me a jerk because I didn't take her to the doctor, what was I supposed to do? She's an adult and I can't make her go somewhere. Plus, after she called me controlling, I couldn't continue pushing since I was reminded of who my ex was. Also, a lot of you said that I didn't care or was selfish. I was frustrated over what I was seeing and I wanted my old girlfriend back. I wanted her to be better. You can say that makes me a horrible person if you wish. So here's the update. I took some of your advice and first told her parents. They can't make her do anything, but they know now. I gave her an ultimatum, get help or I leave. I made it clear that I will not sit around as she sleeps all day. It is not normal and she needs help. I said I will help in any way I can. Long story short, we broke up. She got mad saying she was just more tired and it'll be fine. In that moment, I knew that I didn't love her anymore. How could I love someone who sees I'm concerned and call me a manipulative jerk? It was her apartment, so I left. I called her parents again to let them know and to take care of her cat since I could not. I know I'll get hate, but I don't know what else to do. She refused my help and I can't help someone who doesn't want it. I had to move in with my parents again. I feel like a failure. A 28-year-old man stuck with mommy and daddy all because he was too weak to make it work. I don't know if it's the right feeling, but it's how I feel. Am I the jerk? In most cases, you really can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped, but there is obviously a serious medical issue going on with her. It's not like this was happening her entire life. The OP says that it started happening 2 weeks ago. And how could you not be totally surprised and shocked that this massive of a sleep difference happened in only the last 2 weeks? I have no idea what would cause somebody to sleep for 20 hours a day. Maybe you guys have some ideas, but one of the common things that seems to be thrown around is the possibility of thyroid issues. Somebody commented and said, right before I got diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease, which affects the thyroid, I started feeling super sleepy all the time. It didn't matter how much I slept, it still felt like I hadn't. Besides that, I think depression and tiredness and a lack of energy is a symptom too. So if this was your boyfriend or girlfriend and they just suddenly started sleeping 20 hours a day, what would you do? How would you handle the situation, and jerk or not a jerk, and why? My trailer trashed addict tough guy neighbor keeps stealing my mail and tries to act tough. So I respond by helping the state take his kid, get him arrested, and make him lose everything. Here's how I pulled off my revenge. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. It all started about 4 months ago while I was living in a terrible duplex in a bad part of the city where I used to live. I had been living in this duplex for about a year and a half, and even though it wasn't in a good part of the city, no one really bothered us and our neighbors were pretty normal, so I didn't really mind it. At least not until my old neighbors moved out and Satan's minions moved in. I knew from the moment I met them that there was going to be an issue. There were 5 of them altogether, 3 guys, 1 baby, and 1 girl. And these were the only 1-bedroom places. I tried my best not to judge, so I went over while they were moving to say hello and welcome them to the area. I walk over and say, "Hey, how's it going? I guess you guys are my new neighbors now, huh?" All 5 of them, at the exact same time, stopped what they were doing and stared at me. The oldest of the bunch was a guy, and I extended my hand out to shake his, and he just looked at my hand, and then looked up at me and said, "What do you want, kid?" I replied, "Just to welcome you guys to the area. Sorry to bother you." He just stared at me, so I started to walk off, and as I did, I looked back and he said, "Lift with your knees, not with your back," just to be a jerk. That was the only contact I had with them for the next 2 weeks. This is when things started going missing. I had ordered a very expensive pair of headphones for my music hobby, and my girlfriend had some expensive makeup that seemed to have just disappeared. The orders said delivered, but the stuff was nowhere to be found, so I did the logical thing and knocked on the door right next to mine. The guy answered almost before my fist left the door and stared me down with a crazed look in his eye. He said nothing for a solid 8 seconds, so I said, "Hey, I'm missing some mail and I was wondering if maybe you guys had picked up some packages by mistake." He continues to stare at me and I notice some white powder peeking out from one of his nostrils, and I suddenly get a better idea of who this guy is. He then snorts really loudly and spits on the porch in front of me and says, "No, but if I did, what does that mean?" At this point, I'm frustrated and I say, "What are you getting at? You realize mail theft is a federal crime, right?" He immediately gets in my face and says, "Anything coming to my house belongs to me, and if you want something of mine, then you're gonna have to pay for it." It all becomes very clear to me now. This guy is your typical trailer trash addict tough guy. So I continue to look at him in his bloodshot and bruised eyes and say, "Look, if you have my stuff, I will find out. Don't say I didn't try to negotiate with you." And then I left. I then went to my local sporting goods store and purchased a game camera. I set the camera up in the tree in our shared front yard while they were gone, and then ordered some stuff on Amazon to bait the trap. Sure enough, I had video of them not only taking my mail but performing 4 illegal substance deals on my porch. At this point, I am pissed, but I'm a reasonable guy, so I try to go over to work this out with the help of the law. I knock on the door and I'm greeted by the same crazy-eyed guy and the same bloodshot stare as before. This time he greets me with, "Do you want to buy something or do I need to tell you to piss off?" I almost walked away right there, but I was keeping it together because I had the power and I wanted to gloat. I replied, "Look, I know what you do for a living and I know you have my mail. I just want my stuff back and I don't want any more illegal substance deals going on around my house, or I'll call the police." He gets furious immediately and starts to yell in my face, "Go F yourself, little F slur boy. This is my house and you aren't gonna do nothing to me. I own this whole town and if you try anything, I will mess you up so bad they'll never identify the body." I just smiled the biggest smile of my entire life and replied, "Okay, see you later, man," and walked away. You see, the first time after talking to this guy, I decided that I was going to record our conversation with my phone, just to get any extra evidence in case I turned it all over to the police. I had just recorded him giving me a death threat. I called the cops, gave them all the video footage of the mail theft, of the illegal substance deals going down, and the audio of him threatening me. Luckily, this happened in a one-party state, so all evidence could be used in court. Him and his cohorts were all arrested. Their kid was taken by CPS, and I I just watched from my front window with the most accomplished feeling probably ever in my entire life. I haven't gotten my stuff back yet though, and I still have to testify in court. So am I the jerk? These neighbors are probably people who have never had somebody fight back against what they were doing, and that's why it went down the way that it did, with such hostility and the original poster having to go to the lengths he did in order to get proof. And usually it's a sad situation when parents get a kid taken, but from the sounds of it, pretty much anything would be a better environment to grow up in than this, with all the deals going on constantly and the adults in the house that were always on something, threatening people to come to their door all the time. That kid will probably have a much better life anywhere else, and these neighbors probably never would have been found out if they just didn't steal the original poster's packages, at least not for a while. They were probably already making a ton of money as it was because of the nature of their business, but then they got greedy and had to steal this guy's headphones, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back. It pushed him into setting up the cameras, getting video proof of what was going down, and ultimately turning them in. Now they lost their kid, their freedom, and all of that money that they had been making. So was the revenge justified or was it going too far? Let me know down below and jerk or not a jerk and why. Before we jump into the next story, don't forget to subscribe to the second channel where you can hear some of my personal stories, linked down below in the description. My wife and her best friend accused me of having an affair and then got angry when I didn't have one. I'm a 31-year-old male and my wife is 29. We had a baby last December. It was a traumatic birth and my wife developed postpartum depression. While she was originally going to go back to work after the birth, she's been struggling enough that we decided to wait until our daughter was a year old and reassess. She has been going to therapy weekly. With my wife home full time, I've had to work increased hours. This is something we discussed prior to making this decision, and she knew this from the start. A few weeks ago, my boss approached me about a project that would require a lot of overtime in a short amount of time. It would both be great financially and for my career. I talked to my wife about it and she agreed that I should say yes to my boss. For 4 weeks I'd be working on this, and my mother-in-law and her best friend, Jessie, who's 29, would come help out with some of the duties that I typically do. Jessie is a stay-at-home mom with a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. She began coming over during the day and would watch the kids with my wife. 3 weeks into the project, it became clear that we need a few more weeks to get it together. I went home that night and talked to my wife about it. She said she was okay with it, but got very cold in the days after. It wasn't unusual behavior over the past few months, so I didn't think much of it and tried not to take it personally. During the last week of the project, I got home one night and saw Jessie was still at the house. I didn't think much about it. I said hi to her and my wife and then went to go check on our daughter. Before I could get into her room, I heard Jessie say something along the lines of,
He doesn't even stop to greet you? Definitely a sign.
I turned around and asked what it was a sign of. Immediately, my wife started crying and Jessie started accusing me of having an affair. She told me that I must hate my wife because she has postpartum depression and that I'm not attracted to her because she's gained weight from the pregnancy. Neither of these things are true. I'm trying my best to help my wife through her postpartum depression while supporting our family, and I think she looks great how she is now. She just hasn't wanted to do the deed and I haven't pushed. Jessie then demanded to see my phone. I told her no. She told me that's a sign that I'm guilty. I told my wife that I would let her see my phone if she wanted to. She nodded and something inside me broke. I guess it was the thought that she actually believed that I was having an affair that really got to me and that she didn't trust me after everything we've been through. Well, she looked through the phone and there was no evidence. Jessie started saying that I deleted the evidence. She started screaming and that woke up our daughter, so I told her to get out of the house. Eventually, she left and I went to calm our daughter since my wife was still on the couch crying. When my daughter was asleep again, I sat down by my wife and tried to talk to her about what's been happening. She told me that she's been worried ever since I started working all the overtime. I told her that we talked about how good of an opportunity it was and she agreed to letting me take on this project. She said it was very suspicious to increase the length of the project. I told her that happens sometimes. She wanted more evidence, so I showed her messages and emails with timestamps from work and pay stubs showing the overtime. She said she believed me and she was sorry for doubting me. It was just that Jessie had been telling her these were all signs that I was cheating. I asked her why she believed Jessie more than me, and why didn't she come to me with her concerns. She didn't have a real answer. It's been a couple of weeks and the project is over. I actually scaled back and I'm trying to work a little less than I was before on the project so I can spend more time with my wife and daughter, but I feel so burnt out trying to do everything and becoming resentful because in the back of my mind, I know that my wife doesn't trust me. I ask myself, what happens the next time I have a project? Or if I have to run errands one day, or if I have a business trip, am I going to come back every time to accusations that I'm cheating? I've tried bringing it up a couple times, but my wife tells me it's not the time and that she's tired or sad. I try to be mindful of her feelings, but I wonder if that means I can never have any of my own. I'm not sure what to do here. Any advice for how I can move forward? Jumping into the future, there is an update. That night, I approached my wife and told her that I was going to find a therapist. I didn't connect it to her accusations or anything, just said that I was having a tough time and I needed therapy. She shrugged and then told me to do whatever. The next day I got home from work and our room and my home office was ripped apart. Things were everywhere. Important papers were scattered. I don't see her, but our daughter is in her room crying. My wife left her alone? Her cell phone's off? I call my in-laws and a few friends, but no one's seen her. I'm starting to get worried, and I call my mom to see if she can babysit while I go out and look for her. Before my mom can get home, my wife gets back. Jesse's driving. Jessie doesn't come in. She hasn't been back in the house since I kicked her out because she was offended by my behavior, but my wife does. She's clearly upset, been crying. I ask what happened. I thought at first the house might have been robbed. She starts screaming at me that I'm being unfaithful and that therapy is a front so that I can meet my mistress. I try to calm her down and tell her that's not true, but she came at me and swung. My nose is broken. She kind of realized what she did and sat down on the couch and went comatose, just stared at the wall. I went into my daughter's room and locked the door. I called my mom to tell her what happened. She was already on her way, and my mother-in-law to ask her to come over and take care of my wife. I packed a bag for my daughter, and when my mom got there, we left. My wife didn't even look up. We dropped my daughter off with my dad and then went to urgent care for my nose. I got blood all over my mom's brand new Subaru. My daughter and I are staying with my parents for a while, and my wife is staying with hers. I'm looking into getting a restraining order against Jessie. My wife and I are separating. I love her, but I won't live with someone who hurts me and who could potentially hurt our daughter. I am not going forward with a divorce yet, with the hopes that my wife's will get the treatment she needs and we can work things out. My in-laws told me they're looking at inpatient treatment at a local hospital, but I also have everything well documented in case of an eventual custody battle. My heart is broken because I know this isn't my wife. This is a sickness in her mind, but I need to keep myself and our daughter safe and give her the space to recover. I'm hoping that this is the right decision. Jumping into the future, there is a sad update. My wife passed away on early Monday morning, convinced by her friend Jessie that I was having an affair that I did not have. She had a mental break, which resulted in my taking of our infant daughter and staying with my parents for a while. She was with her parents, who planned on taking her to the hospital for inpatient treatment on Monday. On Sunday, she came to my parents' house and demanded that I give her our daughter. Because she had left her alone for several hours the last time she was responsible for her and had gotten physical with me, I refused. I offered to let her come in and spend time with her while my parents and I were present, but she didn't want to come in and wanted to take our daughter with her. She was upset but left eventually. A few hours later, she drove her parents' car into a tree and died. The friend, Jessie, came to see my daughter and me yesterday. After some tears, she told me that she was planning to speak at my wife's funeral. She had already cleared it with my in-laws but was letting me know as a courtesy. I told her she would not be speaking at the funeral. We fought, and she left after telling me that I was a jerk and not the only person who loved my wife. I talked to my in-laws, who were adamant that Jessie be allowed to speak. She and my wife knew each other since they were kids, and my in-laws were close to her. We're all very fragile right now, and I fear that pushing this further would hurt my relationship with my in-laws, which I don't want. Still, the thought of seeing Jessie up there at my wife's funeral makes me sick. I don't think I can stand to listen to her, knowing that she took joy in my wife's deteriorating mental health and picked up my wife, leaving my daughter home alone. That said, I don't trust myself to make the best decisions right now. My mind's clouded by grief, guilt, and fear. My parents are split on what to do, and I don't have the energy to reach out to my friends. So I'm coming here again to ask for your advice. What should I do? This was a horrifying story. I did not expect it to get that dark. From the way the OP tells it here, it sounds like the postpartum depression is the key factor that allowed his wife's mind to be so susceptible to the influence of Jessie. And since the entire crux of this story is built around postpartum depression, I wanted to actually look up to learn a little bit about it and tell you guys, for those that may not know. So everything that happened here apparently is not the only symptom from that. According to the wiki, some of the other symptoms include extreme sadness, low energy, anxiety, crying episodes, irritability, and changes in sleeping or eating patterns. I mean, he even describes in the story how she went comatose on the couch after she got physical with him. Apparently, it affects 15% of women after childbirth, and there's a thing called postpartum psychosis, which is a more severe form of postpartum mood disorder, and that occurs much less frequently, about 1 or 2 people out of every 1,000. And apparently, the psychosis part of postpartum psychosis implies the presence of manic symptoms, stupor or catatonia, perplexity, confusion, disorders of the will and the self, and or hallucinations. And there's a bunch of other ones, but whether it's postpartum depression or postpartum psychosis, I don't know, I'm not a doctor. But something was definitely playing on her mind. The fact that he actually showed her proof that he was not cheating. He had the pay stubs for the overtime, the messages from his boss, but yet she was still susceptible to the friend who was trying to tell her that he was having an affair, really demonstrates the severity of her mental state at the time. I mean, even the lack of judgment, leaving a newborn baby alone and driving off on a whim. All of that adds up to something was seriously wrong in her mind, and it all led to this tragic outcome. So if this was you in this situation, would you allow Jesse to speak at your wife's funeral? Let me know down below. I'm a 29-year-old female and I keep finding long hairs in my bathroom, which is strange because my 32-year-old husband is bald and I have a short pixie crop hairstyle. This started a few weeks ago. While cleaning the bathroom, I found a number of long hair strands over my bathroom wall by the shower. This struck me as very odd because not only does my husband not have hair, I also wear a very cropped short hairstyle, so it's impossible for the strands I found to belong to either me or my husband. Confused, I washed them away but couldn't stop thinking about it. I decided not to mention it, but I kept looking out for them. There seems to be a pattern that there's hairs appearing when I'm either at work or out for a long period of time. I feel like I'm going crazy and feel like I shouldn't just immediately assume that my husband is cheating on me with a longer haired woman. I asked my husband about it and he just shrugged, which makes me more paranoid as surely this is something that's strange, so why is he so blasé about it? I'm starting to think he's playing it down to stop me from finding out the truth. It happened again 2 days ago and I asked my husband again. He dismissed it, but this time admitted it's strange, but told me the only explanation is that they must be my hairs. They are not. And after saying so, now he'll just ignore me if I bring it up. I don't want to assume my husband is cheating on me and accuse him of something like that over something so ridiculous, but I'm driving myself into the ground trying to work out how the hairs have gotten there without my husband dismissing it as nothing. During the lockdown, we haven't had any visitors that I know of, so I can rule out his sister. Jumping into the future, there is an update. I ultimately decided against getting a secret camera set up because ironically enough, I didn't want to betray my partner's trust, though part of me wanted to get one to squash any worries of someone living in my walls, as per some comments said. I did though plan to leave work early, which is something I've never done before. My boss allowed me to leave after half a day. Upon returning home, nothing seemed amiss. I was expecting another car on the driveway or parked outside on the street. There was no other car I didn't recognize. Quietly letting myself in, I was immediately confused. In the hallway, there was a pair of shoes I didn't recognize, and not only that, they looked like men's shoes. Standing in the hallway, trying to work out what to do, if I should sneak around or make my presence known, something happens before I could decide. My husband walked out of the kitchen with 2 cups of tea. By my husband's face, it was obvious he was surprised to see me. Playing along with my naivety, I asked my husband how could he have known that I was coming home to make me tea. Expecting my husband to lie, he surprised me by sitting me down and explaining everything. At the beginning of lockdown, his friend, someone I'm not all that close with because we've only met once, was evicted, lost his job, and had been couch surfing. So for some days over the past few weeks, this guy has been traveling to our house with the acceptance of my husband, using our bathroom to freshen up and attend interviews. He was also borrowing shirts and suits from my husband. As it turned out, my husband's friend has long hair and a beard. So it turns out my husband isn't cheating on me, but was hiding the fact that his long-haired friend was coming over to use our shower. After his shower, I ended up meeting Dave, and he turned out to be a very nice bloke, just down on his luck. I wished him the best for his socially distanced interview, and he went on his way. I asked my husband, why didn't he just tell me, as I wouldn't have had a problem with it. It turns out he was worried about my reaction and me not liking his friend or approving of the situation. He also told me Dave was very embarrassed about the whole situation and didn't want people to know what he was having to do. I told my husband I was starting to believe he was cheating, and he was shocked, having not even considered those implications while attempting to covering for his friend. I told him this whole thing thing was ridiculous and even suggested his friend live with us until he's back on his feet. Funnily enough, my worst case scenario, which was mentioned in the replies, was either a homeless man or woman living in my walls and sneakily using the shower. And though this seems to be half the case, I'm glad it wasn't a stranger as such that wasn't unwelcome and someone that wasn't living in my walls. So was I the jerk for thinking that my husband might be cheating on me? The most glaringly strange part of this whole thing is the fact that the husband wouldn't have just told the wife. His first reason doesn't really make any sense. It kind of sounds like he's just lying without lying. He's lying by omission. He didn't want to tell her because she thought she would say no, so he decided to just do it without talking with her at all. That's a weaker reasoning when compared to the second one. The second one makes a lot more sense. Dave was very embarrassed about the whole situation and didn't want people to know what he was having to do. Before agreeing to that, the husband should have just been upfront and honest and saying, hey, I won't tell anybody about this, but I do need to let my wife know because she lives here too. I think that's perfectly reasonable, especially if you let him know my wife won't be telling anyone. I mean, she ended up finding out anyway, and she was bound to find out because she lives there. Of course, eventually something would happen, especially if this was a long-term thing. So even though the second reason does make a lot more sense, the husband should have just been upfront with the friend to begin with and then avoided all of this secrecy and confusion. But it was really kind of the wife to offer him just to move in until he got on his feet. That's something not everyone would do. So let me know how you see the situation down below, and do you think the wife was the jerk for even considering that her husband might be cheating? Let me know down below. I work at a school in a very rich area. The kids are used to this extravagant, luxurious life, and one day I had to put a spoiled brat, rotten kid in timeout, and that kid told her mom, and now her mom wants to sue me. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. About 5 years ago, when I was 20 years old, I used to work as a yard supervisor at the local elementary school while I was on break from college. It wasn't much, but I'd at least get a month's worth of work in the summer and then a week in the winter. They were also super lenient with my hours, probably because they tended to be shorthanded, and also my mother worked at the school as a teacher too. If you don't know what a yard supervisor is, we're the kind of people who stand in the lunchroom or on the playground during recess and make sure the kids are behaving. Basically glorified babysitters. I was the youngest of my coworkers, since the others who worked there were women who had kids that attended the school. For some background, this school was in the rich part of town, the kind of elementary school situated in a nice suburban neighborhood where everyone has Cadillac, SUVs, and maybe a BMW, Mercedes, or Tesla as their second car, and they love to try to solve all their inconveniences with lawyers. I always thought it was a stereotype that the rich people in town would threaten you with their lawyers when they didn't get what they wanted. Most of the time, they were bluffing though. Anyways, among the fourth graders at this school, there was this kid named Hannah. Honestly, I don't remember, but her name might have actually been Hannah. I doubt it matters though. She was your classic playground bully, a notorious liar, loved to pick on anyone smaller than her, which, considering her size, there were plenty of kids for her to choose from, and she had quite the temper. She was also supposed to be in the 5th grade, but had been held back a year, and she had this other girl named Sierra as her crony. Hannah always initiated the trouble and would boss Sierra around to do her bidding. She would even activate Sierra occasionally. One time I witnessed Hannah shove Sierra and then run up to tell me Sierra shoved her. Sierra, getting mad, would then shove Hannah, and at this point, I'd have to send them both to the principal's office, and to my knowledge, they'd just get off with a warning. Sierra's not important to the story though. I just wanted to add that bit so you can kind of picture Hannah and her like Scott Farkas and his crony. The situation was almost identical. None of my co-workers, including Hannah's teacher, liked Hannah. She was notorious for causing trouble and then making up elaborate lies to cover herself. Everyone knew this and had warned me when I first started the job. If you're wondering why nothing was ever done or why this child never got therapy, I have no idea. This was the US public education system, and also her mother was a B, which I'll get to later. One day I'm working in the lunchroom and I overhear Hannah calling another student names and making them cry. Supposedly, she also struck him, but none of us witnessed it, though we wouldn't put it past her. We remove Hannah from the table and make her sit at this table that we have reserved for delinquents, while we write up a note to send her to the principal. At best, she would get detention or perhaps a couple days suspension. This is a reoccurring problem. The bell for recess rings and we make Hannah stay inside and sit at the table in timeout. No recess for her that day. The rest of the story I was not here for. I was only told the rest by my coworkers the next day. Hannah, returning to class, goes to her teacher and tells her,
"The young yard duty hit me and called me names."
I am the young yard duty, being 20 years old while my coworkers were at least in their 40s. The teacher knows she's lying and tells her to take it up with the principal. principal since such a claim is serious. Hannah doesn't like the principal, so instead, after school, she goes to one of the other yard supervisor and tells her the same thing. That yard supervisor was working with me in the lunchroom that day and knew that no such thing happened and tells her not to tell lies. Hannah, of course, then goes to her mom. Hannah's mom had as much a reputation around the school as Hannah did for being just an all-around unpleasant person. Hannah's mom is also under the impression that her daughter could never do any wrong and that the school was constantly trying to pick on her. I think her claim was the school was bullying her for being fat or for being too pretty. It was one or the other, or maybe both, since my only knowledge about this came from my coworkers. So you can probably guess her reaction when Hannah told her the story that she made up. Hannah's mom, the entitled mom, goes straight to the principal's office and starts cursing out the principal and demands legal action to be taken. The principal, having already been notified of Hannah's behavior in the lunchroom that day and being well acquainted with both Hannah and the entitled mother's behavior, told the entitled mother the real story. The entitled mother insists that I must have actually done something to Hannah and that she's been bullied this entire time at school and that saying Hannah did these things must be me trying to cover my butt and that I must be on a power trip or something. She demands a lawsuit against me and wants me in the office to face her. I had already left work for the day and the principal was under no obligation to call me and didn't care to entertain the entitled mother with her antics anyway. The principal then tells her if I did do these things then she should file a police report. The entitled mother agrees, but this is where Hannah snaps. For some reason, perhaps just the way police are portrayed to kids as these heroes who will find you out, Hannah is terrified of the thought of having to talk to the police. So finally, Hannah starts crying and spills that she made it up and that nobody had struck her and that she was just mad about missing recess for a timeout. The entitled mom, of course, now believes that Hannah has been coerced into admitting this because why would her little angel lie? The entitled mom storms out of the office claiming that she'll still get her lawsuit, and that's the last thing I hear about her. No lawsuit ever came, thankfully, because I know my broke college butt would never be able to afford it. Many of my coworkers told me that they've had lawsuits threatened on them from various parents aside from the entitled mother, but they never came to anything. It was almost a game for how many lawsuit threats you could get during your time at that school. One of my coworkers, before she ended up being fired for a claim Hannah made against her, that's another story, the principal didn't get a choice in it, and our school board, which was also just terrible in more ways than one, decided she had too many claims against her and that she should be let go, taught me a great quote from that ordeal. The bee apple doesn't fall far from the bee tree. So am I the jerk for how I handle this? I just imagine working on this place, you have to be on edge constantly because every single person there probably thinks that they are superior in some way because of their parents and what their parents do and what connections their parents have and who their lawyer is. It's a weird way to start off life as a kid, automatically thinking that you are above other people, especially your own teachers and people that work at the school. I think most people have the experience that they're just a normal kid and they don't have this weird power trip that a lot of kids at this school seem to have. And even when that is the case, where the kids are like that in that state of mind, it's a pretty weird thing to lie about. It's a serious accusation. Somebody's whole life could be ruined over that. But I'm guessing the reason that Hannah lied about that is probably because she knew what a big deal it would make, or at least she thought she would. She probably wouldn't think it would involve the police when she first said that, but she thought it would get enough attention for her to get what she wanted. So let me know how you see the situation down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Before we jump into the next story, don't forget to subscribe to the second channel where you can hear some of my personal stories, linked down below in the description. And if you're interested one day in working on the new channel with us, there's a link for that down below too. Can my parents make me go to fat camp? I'm a 14-year-old boy and I live in New York State with my mom and stepfather. My dad died before I was born and I grew up alone with my mom until I was 10 and she met him, my stepfather. They married about 2 years ago and he has been my stepfather ever since. I do not hate my stepfather and he does not hate me. I'm glad that he met my mother. She was very lonely when I was a kid and he makes her happy and is a very kind person. We were also very poor and he is a businessman who makes a lot of money and can take care of my mom so she doesn't have to overwork herself. He has never gotten an argument with me and we do not fight, but it is very awkward in the house between between us, even with both of us trying to be nice. We have very little in common, but I want to repeat, I do not hate him at all because I know that many people have relationships with their step-parents of that sort, and I do not have that. So I am fat, very fat, very, very fat. I have always been fat. I was the tallest kid in my class last year at about 260 pounds, which I know is fat. My weight doesn't bother me. I like being fat. The only thing it really changes is how I might get along with girls. But from my angle, it's a good way to see who is shallow. I do not want to eat healthy, and I think about food a lot. I have dieted in the past, but it has made me very miserable. I am not lazy or anything. I work very hard at school and in everything I do. I just don't care about this. My mom does care more than me, but she never bothered me about it. But my stepdad brings it up a lot. Never in a mean way, but he always asks me to go to the gym and tries only buying things which do not fill me up and are overly healthy. A few weeks ago, we went to the doctor and they gave me a speech about eating better, and today, my stepdad and my mom wanted to speak to me. After my last day of school for the semester, since I'm skipping an exam week that I exempted, they talked about the doctor's meeting and said that I am going to a health camp for the literal entire summer, from early June until middle of August, all of it. I looked it up and it's just a fat camp. I was obviously really upset and I begged them not to send me, but they said that they've already paid for it and I was definitely going. I don't ever yell at my parents, but I couldn't manage a conversation, so I just left immediately, went into my room and cried. I went down later and asked very nicely if I didn't have to go, and they said no. I asked why I deserved a punishment, and they said it wasn't a punishment. I just left again because I wouldn't have been able to stop from screaming at them, and I don't want to yell at them. From a legal perspective, can they force me to go? At 14, it seems ridiculous that they could force me to go. I'll actually be 15 halfway through. I have to take a plane. They can't legally require me to get on a plane, right? I understand if I was like 10 years old or something, but I'm a teenager now. This is my last summer before high school, and it's so stupid that this is how it might be wasted. At 14 or 15, they don't need my permission at all. Please, give me your advice. Jumping into the future, there is an update. I am in New York. I had many conversations with my parents and they refused to budge. I considered leaving the house for a bit, but ultimately decided not to. I've tried not to be, but I'm honestly very angry at my parents for doing this to me, and I view them very negatively, at least much more than before. I feel like they don't care about my opinion at all. I've done research and nobody loses weight at the camp I'm going to, and again, even if they did, I don't care. I'm going to the camp tomorrow night and I'm not looking forward to it. I feel very depressed and I have not felt happy since this all began. I looked it up and it would be easy for me to not get on the plane, but I still don't want to make a scene. I am intentionally not going to try to lose any weight at camp, which I've been honest about. My parents are suddenly acting like I want to go because I told them I literally wouldn't physically fight against it, and they don't care what I say or think. I have lost a lot of respect for my parents as people, and I do not want to be around them anymore. Either way, I'm going tomorrow. Thanks to the people that were helpful. Many people say that it is impossible to be happy and fat, and I think those people are wrong, but I don't think they will ever change their minds. Jumping into the future, there's another update. I was taken to camp earlier this month and I did not resist going, but I was very upfront with my parents that I wasn't going to participate whenever possible. They did not take me seriously. I went on the plane and told the counselors the same thing, and once I got on the bus, I was very polite but honest about it. My tactic was to use peaceful, non-violent resistance until they let me go home, unless it turned out to be a crazy camp, which it wasn't. I read a book about the civil rights movement a few months ago, and I based what I did off of that. Obviously, me being at a camp isn't even close to human rights, but the technique still worked. I got to my cabin and I just stayed on my bed and politely told them that I didn't plan on doing the exercises. The counselors spoke to me nicely and then less nicely and tried to convince me to move, but they couldn't, and I'm too big to drag off a bed even if they wanted to. They were nice people and I wanted to be nice to them as well, but again, I was open and honest through everything. I just did not go to the event after I went to my cabin. I politely and calmly refused to go to the opening ceremony, exercises, meetings, activities, even though nothing was optional. When the kids in my cabin spoke or tried to convince me to come down, I also politely refused to speak to them. They then said that I wouldn't get dinner or lunch if I didn't come down and participate, and I refused, assuming that they need to feed me sometimes. I was right. They didn't give me dinner that night or breakfast because I didn't go to eat, but someone brought me a lunch the next day, even if it was a terrible, overly healthy type of thing. I was still very hungry and very bored, but I just kept imagining getting getting out early. That lasted for 6 days with me spending all of my time on the bed and them bringing me food. I brought books, but they took my books away, so I just sat there and entertained myself by imagining stuff. It was the most boring thing I've ever done. After a week or 6 days, I'm not sure, the headmaster, owner / leader of the camp came to me and spoke to me directly. Again, he was very nice to me and I tried to be nice back, but I was open about the fact that I wasn't doing anything until I went home. He was trying to convince me that I wanted to lose weight, but I didn't want to lose weight. The next day, he called my parents and I left for the first time to speak to them in his office. They begged me to do it, and we had a weird conference call meeting with them on the phone and the headmaster, who was there too, and they were all trying to convince me to participate and even shaming me a bit. But again, I calmly refused very simply. They said they were going to wait 3 more days to give me, quote, time to think about it. And I told them that it wouldn't make a difference, but they did it anyway. So I sat another 3 days and then an extra day waiting. After that, we had one more conference and then I was sent that night on a plane ticket home because I peacefully refused to do everything and they saw no point of keeping me there. They really tried shaming me near the end, but I told them that I couldn't feel ashamed for not doing something that they wanted me to do. I felt slightly sad about having to be a pain for the counselors or the head guy because neither did anything wrong to me, but I was very, very, very happy that I won't have to spend the whole summer there. My parents are in a sad mood since I came back and they aren't really speaking to me, but at least I'm home and I won't have to spend another month there. They also got some of their money back because I wasn't there the whole time. I appreciate all the advice I got, even if I don't agree with all of it. Thank you. I got most of my summer back. The next few updates are really shocking, starting with this first one that is kind of just a recap and pondering on everything, and then it gets a lot crazier. Is being skinny really all that great? I'm 14, 255 pounds, and I've always been very, very fat, and I honestly prefer it for the most part. It's a good way to know who's shallow and who cares about you. You don't need to worry about many other aspects of life that I feel people constantly obsess over. Has losing weight honestly made any actual impact on your life? I don't care about losing 5 to 10 years of being old, and I don't care about people treating you nicer either. I think the health stuff is over-exaggerated, and the social stuff is nonsense anyway. Then we jump into the future a little less than a year, and this is where it starts. Can my parents in school force me to take heart medication? I'm 15 and I'm a boy. I live in New York State. Several months ago, I had heartburn that was misinterpreted by doctors to be a heart attack. It wasn't. Simply put, it was a severe over-exaggeration. Since then, I've been made to take medication at home, which I don't want to because I've read about the side effects and I don't want to be taking something for an issue that doesn't exist. Since I got it originally, I just stopped taking the pills, which, long story short, my parents found out about, and it has been a very big fight with them since. They have contacted my school, a public school, and after they had a talk with me and the principal. Basically, what has been happening is I come in the morning and they force me to go into a room with a guidance counselor and an extra person to watch me swallow the pills that I need. For some time, I'd go and make myself vomit immediately after in the bathroom, and then they found out, and now I have to stay for 20 minutes and drink water. They do not even let me go to class if I refuse. How can this be legal? I'm sorry to ask here, but I literally cannot find information on this anywhere. Where would I even report this if the principal is in on it? The next update gets even more intense. I'm 15 and I am so afraid I'm going to die. I came on here once and said that I didn't need to lose weight, and I was wrong, and I'm sorry. Right now I'm 275 pounds. 2 days ago, I woke up gasping and choking for air. I couldn't breathe. This happened before, but never as intensely. I just woke up choking. It was the scariest thing in my entire life, and I cried for 20 minutes. I'm ready to change, but I'm so afraid that I'm going to die anyway. I was ignoring a bunch of stuff and I have no idea. I have had very bad heartburn before. I tried eating less today, which I haven't done in years, and made it to 70% of the day, and then I couldn't stop after a certain point. Like my hand shook because I wanted to eat so much. I'm looking up studies that describe it and everybody seems to gain it back. Exercise is impossible. Not eating is impossible. I am so afraid. I really apologize. I'm looking at protein and carbohydrates and calorie information, and it literally makes no sense to me. There is so much conflicting information. I do not want to die. Jumping into the future, there's another update. I made some posts in the past and I made progress for the first time, so I thought that I would make an update post. I was 15 and I had something that was misdiagnosed as a heart attack. It wasn't. And then sleep apnea, which I really did have. I couldn't breathe and it scared me, so I decided to change certain things to lose weight. I did 3 main things. Number 1, calories. Counted them using a tracker which told me what I could eat. Ate stuff sort of more healthy healthy, but still some unhealthy stuff. Like I might have veggies and meat, but I would also have cookies, candies, but all below the calorie number that I could eat. I usually skip breakfast because I'm not hungry in the morning, and then I can eat 3 meals in half of the day, which is way easier for me than 3 meals throughout the whole day. Number 2, water. No drinking anything but water. This was very hard, but it worked in the end and helped a lot, especially with not going over on calories. Number 3, walking. I listen to music and I walk an hour every day. This was very hard at the start, but got easy, and I might add more time soon. I started losing weight very quickly when I did this. I felt very bad for 1 week and then very good, and stayed like that physically. I don't feel that different, but still losing because I'm afraid of the breathing thing coming back. I want to get to 200 pounds and then we'll see. I'm very depressed. My parents don't talk to me anymore. They haven't for months for the most part. I don't take my medication for a misdiagnosis, and they just decided to stop talking with me about anything, even after I lost weight. They buy the food I asked them to. We just started doing this over text, and now I just make food for myself. I talk to them maybe once a week for a short conversation, and they purposely spend time out of the house so they can get away from me. They're here maybe 3 nights a week. I don't care anymore. I'm going to lose more weight and then move away when I turn 18 and never speak to them again. I'm looking forward to it. This is just an update since a lot of people message me about it. I'm still losing weight. Jumping into the future, there is one final update. After quitting fat camp and having a heart attack at 15, I dropped the weight and now I'm living my best life. 275 pounds to 170. A few years ago, I posted some messages about my experiences with obesity, my parents, and being sent to fat camp against my will. I saw somebody posting about it on Discord, so I thought that I would update. I have lost the weight. I tried over the course of about a year and a half, first losing about 40 pounds, then 50 pounds, but each time I gained it back before having to restart. Early last year, I tried again, and that attempt clicked. I have since lost all the extra weight and even put on a little muscle by lifting. I am still not used to it. I catch myself making much more room than I need to when walking by people. 4 things that made this attempt different. Number 1, I tried less, which sounds like it doesn't make sense, but I think by not obsessing over it as much as I did during the first 2 times helped me not to burn out and give up. I just counted calories without obsessing and did cardio and lifting 3 to 4 times a week. I ate probably 80% clean, 20% dirty. It feels like less of a struggle and less work. I can eat happily how I do now forever and not feel like I'm missing out on anything. That wasn't as true with the diets that I was doing before. Number 2, I moved out at 17 to live with a friend's family. I don't have much of a relationship with my parents anymore, and it was easier to lose the weight when not being around them. There's a lot of stuff I didn't talk about in the earlier posts, some of which because I was too young to know what was happening. I was in denial about my situation and not pleasant to be around, but my mother and stepfather were not responsible parents and neglected me more than I realized was appropriate. There were short periods where they would be very involved in my life to overcompensate for periods when they would go on trips for weeks, several for months, and leave me alone in a house filled with junk food, which at the time I thought that I loved, but I realized was horrible. They never hurt me, but they would rarely try to be parents, and when they did, it was always in extreme ways, like sending me to the fat camp and giving me dramatic speeches after not interacting with me for long periods of time. We had many verbal fights over the last few months I was living there, and they refused to acknowledge any responsibility, even though I was acknowledging mine. Once, a woman who had been friends with my mom over the phone for over 6 years came to visit the house. She lived in another state and spoke to my mom over the phone almost daily and said that she didn't know that my mom had a son. Number 3, I have friends now who know my history and we go lifting together. It makes a big difference when you have people who like you and keep you on track. We play sports, which is a great way to exercise. A lot of dodgeball sounds cringe, but it's very fun. Number 4, I read Meditations by Marcus. It has helped me a lot. Here are some other stuff. I still take statins, although the dosage has been lowered. I have another appointment in a few weeks, which is the first time since I have lost all the weight. I am hoping I will be able to stop them. If not, it will be what it will be. In a comment, I think I compared myself to Nelson Mandela by not exercising at fat camp, and that was very cringe. I am sorry. I had just read his biography at the time, so it was in my mind. I was 15 and dumb. I will probably look back in the future and think I am dumb now too. I am taking classes at community college, hoping to transfer to a university and graduate either in avionics or mechanical engineering or another similar field. And I'm not depressed anymore. We can get much higher and the future looks bright. I have a girlfriend now. She's a supermodel from Canada. No, you can't meet her. She goes to another school. I will be honest. I'm not going to read most of them, but there were hundreds of old messages in my inbox from people who tried to give me advice over the last few years. Thank you for the positive thoughts. If you are in the same position that I was, you can make it out. The biggest thing that that I learned is that it's impossible to improve when you hate yourself. You have to care about yourself enough to want to get better. My problem was that I didn't know how. So now that you know everything, who was the jerk? This story was a roller coaster, starting from the point that he refused to do any exercise at all as a form of protest in order to prove a point and be able to be sent home early, all the way to the point that he realized he can't improve until he learns to not hate himself, but his problem was that he didn't know how. That is quite the journey. One part that he briefly mentions that I think is really interesting is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. If you watch enough Am I the Jerk, you probably have noticed that there are quotes from time to time that come from a lot of these really old philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and so on. And from what I'm piecing together, his problem, the fact that he didn't know how, at least to some extent, it sounds like he found it in Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, which is kind of like everything going full circle. Once we got to the part of the story where the OP was waking up gasping for air and saying that he does not want to die, the quote from Meditations that came to mind is, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it?" In other words, the thing that made him so angry was that he was being sent to this fat camp, but his anger is what drove him to reject that and become even more out of shape to the point where he thought he was going to die. The consequences of his anger in this situation were far worse and far more grievous than the cause of it. So let me know if you guys have ever had any experiences like this in your own life down below. My friend's entitled mom tries to force her to have a baby with me, and it goes horribly wrong. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. I used to have a female friend I'll call Tia. She was an okay person, but I didn't like her all that much. Tia was a popular girl, and I was just a person who avoided all other human beings. We didn't match and grew apart after this, but I'll always remember her because of her mother, or the poor excuse for one. We were in town and I was in a store buying white chocolate. It has a different texture and taste compared to milk chocolate and doesn't stick to the back of my throat the same. Tia didn't like chocolate, so she was buying a Twinkie. The store we were in had a section dedicated to American sweets. To all of you Americans out there, you've got a very diverse amount of sweets. Seriously, I didn't know that you could get licorice, caramel, or vanilla Dr. Pepper until I saw that section. I'm willing to come overseas to find out what other future regrets you have in store. Anyway, Tia and I were walking out of the shop when her mom comes in. For the sake of the story, I'll mention that I have a unisex face and voice. With the coat that I wear all the time, it's nearly impossible to see if I have honkers or not. My hair is short and my real life name is also unisex. So basically, it's very easy to mistake me for a lad. I think you understand the title a little better now. I'll call the woman Diana. Diana says,
Tia?
This woman was wearing the ugliest brown shirt I have ever seen. If she slathered herself in poo and deceased cats, it would be a major improvement and less of an eyesore. And this is coming from the girl who goes to stores in a Batman onesie and believes it's fashion. Tia responds saying, "Yes, Mom?"
Why have you been ignoring my texts and my phone calls, Tia?
Tia says, "Mom, I don't want a baby." My eyebrows rocketed from my forehead, punched a hole in the ozone layer, and looped around Mars and came back. I said, "What the heck?" The woman ignores me, but that won't be for long. Tia says, "Babies don't fix broken relationships, Mom."
Tia, I can't have babies and you're my daughter, so you do as I say. There are many girls your age who would be wonderful mothers. In fact, think of it as a little brother or sister.
The woman sounded so hopeful and pleasant that it disturbed me. Other than the fact that she's pushing her daughter to have a baby, the mom continues and says,
My boyfriend loves you though.
Tia responds saying, "He's 34, Mom. He would go to prison if he went anywhere near me." That was the moment when the mother notices me, and the look she has makes me believe I'm looking at the female Hannibal Lecter. I say, "Bollocks."
Hello, you're about my daughter's age, aren't you?
Tia's looking at me with a horrified face.
My boyfriend won't go to prison if you're the daddy.
Nothing has ever been said to me that made me want to poop enough bricks to build a fort to hide from this lady. I say, "I like your approach. Now let's see your departure." I was hopeful that she'd adhere to my advice, but instead, she only looked mildly annoyed.
Listen, you. I will pay you. I'll do anything you ask. Just get me a baby.
I then asked her, "Did you think about adoption?" Not that any adoption center would let her anywhere near an infant, but she said,
No, it must be related to me. You are coming home with me and I am having a baby.
This This crazy lady went from 100 to 1,000. I said, first of all, your daughter is as appealing as Freddy Krueger with frostbite. Secondly, you are crazy. And lastly, I am physically incapable of impregnating anybody. Be like a fart in the wind and disappear. Do I walk away? Nope. I sprint like the Roadrunner has turned man-eater. I ran away. But our tale does not end there. No, it gets even worse. I don't know how, but Diana learned where I lived and decided to come to where I lived. At the time, my mom was at work and my uncle Connor was there. Now that we're older, we don't talk much, but he was once again a witness to my ability to magnetize lunatics to me. There was a knock at the door, and when my uncle goes to open it, expecting my nan, the woman barges in. He's confused, and I just want to have a heart attack. The woman was holding on to a terrified Tia. She shoves my uncle onto the couch and then locks us inside of our own house. It's that crazy bee I was telling you about. Connor, my uncle, says, "What is it with you and these crazy people?" I'd like to know so I can reverse it. I need a vaccine to lunatics if I wish to keep my own safety. Diana, the mother, says,
Do it!
She shoves a crying Tia in front of me and I sit her down. Then the mother says,
There you go.
"Get the heck out of my sister's house."
I don't want you. I want my baby to be cute.
My uncle did not share the same loyalty he did as a young boy, so he abandons me with Diana and her crazy obsession to get a child. I know it's to call the police, but still, I feel betrayed. I tell her, I would call you the C word, but you have neither the depth nor the warmth. Leave my house. I was not afraid to strike if I had to, especially in the face, since she was trying to do this to her daughter and to me. I can't have kids.
Oh, yes, you will.
She grabs onto my coat. Yes, I wear my coat inside and yanks it off. I am only wearing a small pajama top underneath, and there are 2 feminine lumps on my chest. That's it. I am so angry at this point, I wind up and slug this woman in the shoulder. The rest is a bit of a blur, but my uncle unlocked the door and let the 2 police officers in. Unlike others who got off with a slap on the wrist, this woman got the opposite of that. She won't be getting out of jail until 2049, and I'm more than happy about that. My uncle buys me some more chocolate to try and make me feel better, but even though it's been 3 years, I still don't feel better. I don't know what became of Tia, but I want her to be someone nowhere near her family because her mom's boyfriend tried to sue me. I haven't been told what over, but I think it has something to do with emotional trauma or something stupid. I really hope Diana is suffering in jail because that's what she deserves. People, do not demand babies from other people. Just don't. A small update from the future. One of my aunts apparently ran into Tia a couple of months ago. She's living with her dad and has a boyfriend. Good on you, Tia. Nice to hear you aren't totally messed up by your incubation unit of a mother. So, am I the jerk for how far I took this situation with this lady trying to force me to have her child, but technically her grandchild? I think most people at a certain point have seen somebody's parents try to force or pressure their own kids into having kids because they want to have grandchildren. But it sounds like in this situation, this was far beyond the norm. She didn't really want grandchildren. She wanted to have a kid of her own, but she couldn't have kids herself. So she wanted her daughter to have kids and just think of it as her brother or sister so that she could have another kid. That is twisted. If you guys have ever seen 90 Day Fiancé, there's actually a situation like this, but it is not sinister like this situation is. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but basically the idea was the woman could produce the egg, but she couldn't carry the baby all the way through the pregnancy, so she wanted to insert her egg into her daughter and have her daughter give birth to it, but it would technically be her daughter. The 90 Day Fiancé's woman's daughter, even though it would seem like it's her granddaughter. If you've seen the show, you can add some more details, but that's the gist of it. But this lady was totally unhinged. I mean, she's just choosing a random person in a crowd and trying to force them to have a baby with her daughter. Obviously, it's her daughter's friend, but it's still a random choice. Why this friend of your daughter over any of the other ones or any other person in the crowd? That's just sick. And to add to the list of the things that are disturbing here, she's trying to imply that her boyfriend would gladly be the one to impregnate her daughter? What? then it would obviously just be her daughter's baby that she had with her boyfriend, the mom's boyfriend. Nothing would ever unravel that because that is what that would be. So this is obviously a very weird one, but let me know how you would handle the situation if you were in the position of the OP here, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Don't forget to subscribe to the second channel linked down below in the description, because on that channel you can hear all of my personal stories if you're interested in hearing that. My dying wife asked if I would be okay if she fornicated with her ex one last time. I can't have this tied to my main account, but I really need to say something about it, and I have no one I can tell. My wife has a terminal disease. She is projected to live at most 9 months. I am of course destroyed. We've been together for a decade. I don't remember life without her, and I don't know what I'm going to do when she's gone. I've been doing my best to make the last days of her life good and grant whatever wish I can. The doctor said she'd likely need a wheelchair in 4 or 5 months. Then, by month 8, she'll be bedridden for the last few weeks. That's if she doesn't decline faster. Recently, she sat me down and told me that one of the last things she wanted to do was to bang a previous partner of hers. I, of course, was shocked, and I asked why would she want that. She basically thinks that her most physically compatible, satisfying lover was him. She gave a whole monologue about how sometimes doing the deed is just physical and how emotionally fulfilling doing the deed is with me, but it was all nonsense to get to that point. So now I'm left with this: deny my dying wife a wish for my own ego, or let her do the deed with another man who she felt was better. Honestly, I am so pissed off and betrayed that she's asked this of me. I feel like I'm put in a position where I have to say yes because she's dying. I know what I want to say, but I don't know if that's right. I am so hurt that doing it with an ex was apparently so good that she needs to do it once before she dies. I just hate everything about this. Would I be the jerk for saying no? What should I do? Even her just requesting this has probably permanently changed the way he sees her forever, even after she's gone. I think the only real solution here is to give her the choice. He obviously doesn't want this to happen, so it'll probably just have to come down to asking her to make the decision. Either you stay with me and that's not going to happen, or you choose to leave me and pursue that. Because from his perspective, the alternative is even worse. The way he perceives her will already probably never be the same again, but if she ends up going through with this and he stays with her, depending on the type of person he is, he'll probably be resentful of her all the way up until the day she dies, and then resentful of her memory. There are probably some people that would handle this a lot differently, but it sounds like he is definitely not okay with this at his core. There were a lot of interesting responses to this, one of which kind of says a similar thing where if she wants to be with him, then just have her pick up her stuff and finish the rest of her life with her ex. Other people question whether or not she's currently in contact with her ex, and if she is, then maybe she's just seeking permission from the OP because she's already established some sort of reformed connection with her ex. If that's the case, that would be very sad because she's just basically already doing what she wants to do. She just wants to get approval from him so she can eliminate her guilt. The last response I'll share with you is somebody that tried to flip this on its head, saying, if her dying wish was to murder someone, would we grant that wish? How about go on a safari and hunt an endangered animal, or to rob a bank? Dying wishes aren't a free pass to terrible behavior. If she's committed to this course of action, then the relationship is over and she can die alone in a hospice with her boyfriend, her ex-boyfriend. The original poster seems completely shocked by her behavior though. If this is out of character for a loving, honest partner, it makes me wonder if the disease is affecting her cognitive abilities. That's the only pass I would give her in this situation. So if the love of your life asked you this right before they died, how would you respond to them? Let me know your thoughts down below, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. Today my wife met my girlfriend. I'm a 32-year-old male and I am a widow. My wife passed away from pancreatic cancer 5 years ago. She was forced to leave behind our 2 kids, R, who is a 10-year-old boy, and H, who is a 7-year-old boy. My wife was the absolute light of my life. We were high school sweethearts, went to the same college, and got married after graduation. We were inseparable. Every day I fell more in love with her. It was like my heart was living outside my body. When she passed, the amount of pain that I was in was indescribable. I prayed to go to sleep and not wake up just so I could see her one last time. I contemplated meeting her, but every time I was ready, my kids would look at me. They had her face, her personality, her DNA. I couldn't leave them. They were all I had of her. It took years before I was able to normally function again. I even quit my job and lived off savings and her life insurance for about a year. I was half the dad I used to be and only a fraction of my former self. 2 years after her passing, I decided enough was enough and I kicked myself into gear. I found a job in a different city, closer to to my parents. I packed my kids up and I moved. Life was hard, but I kept chugging along and eventually I found some joy. A year after moving, I took a business trip to New York where I met my current girlfriend, Elle. While I acknowledged there was chemistry, I told her I was already married and she understood. However, a few months later, I had to go back to New York where we met up again. I let my guard down for the first time around her. Before I knew it, she was putting in a transfer from my home branch and moving to my city. I fell in love with her and asked her out a year ago next month. My kids adore her and she reminded them that she will never take their mom's place. They lovingly call her Mama L. Today was the anniversary of my wife's passing, an extremely hard day for all of us. This morning I walked into the living room to find Elle and my kids all waiting for me. They were dressed in their church clothes with goofy smiles on their faces and bouquets in hand. Apparently, Elle came up with the idea of a picnic in my wife's grave, an idea that the boys loved as they enjoy going to see their mom. While I was sleeping, they prepared food and flowers, then insisted on wearing their best clothes. I'll admit that I cried at the sight of them. I don't know how I got this lucky twice in a row. I wanted my wife to meet this amazing woman, so I asked Elle to come along and she did. The day that I dread every year turned out to be a humbling reminder of the reason why I stayed on this planet. To my lovely wife, you can never be replaced, but she is good to me, and she takes care of our kids like you would. Thank you for sending her to me. Update from the future. I already had a profound appreciation for my girlfriend before I had made that post, but the comments gave me an entirely new perspective. The night after I made that post, I took my girlfriend out to dinner, and I can't explain it, but the light I was viewing her in was different. Everything she did that night gave me butterflies. She was showing me pictures that she took at the aquarium with my oldest, and I couldn't stop staring at her. In that moment, I came to the conclusion that I was going to propose a lot sooner than I expected. A few days later, I went ring shopping with her mom, who was very excited, and we found the perfect ring. I then made a reservation at her favorite restaurant for last Friday and set the big day in motion. Long story short, I'm getting married again. As some of you said, promotions can wait. Though after looking at her wedding ideas, I may need a promotion to financially recover. I'm excited to start this journey with her and my amazing kids, and as I've said before, I am so lucky. I hope you can all find your own L, and if not, what would you do? This was a lot more wholesome than I expected, especially with that first sentence, today my wife met my girlfriend. Usually when the first sentence is something like that, it's going to lead to a pretty rocky story, but that wasn't the case here at all. In fact, it was the opposite. It sounds like the OP finally found a source of light, some sort of stability in his life after years of grieving. It's worth pointing out that a year after moving, so his wife had already passed away, he took a business trip to New York where he met Elle, but when he was there, he told her that he was already married. So even though she had passed away, he was still waiting to date other people because he still saw himself as being married. I don't know if most people would do that, but it was obviously the right choice because he was still grieving during this time. And even if it wasn't from the perspective of having loyalty to his deceased wife, he probably just wasn't mentally ready to get into another relationship, and that was a more fair decision for Elle. So let me know what you think of this story down below. An entitled mother comes into our shop and wants me to give her a 130 euro mechanical keyboard for free because her son is a professional gamer. That's her reasoning. When I said no, that's when things started getting wild. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. So I'll tell a little backstory. In Finland, we have this thing called TET, T-E-T, which is like a work experience thing. You do it while you're in the 8th grade and it lasts a week. I was 14 and I had taken a job in a tech store. It was good. I am somewhat nerdy and I know about technology and computers, and this is all translated from the Finnish conversation, the argument, so my English might have some mistakes. So I had been working there for a few days, and it was Thursday around 2 p.m. I had about an hour of work time since the TET rule said that the work time was 6 hours. I was behind a cash register desk filling the cabinets with some phones that had arrived in the shipment that day. Then the entitled mother and the entitled esports kid entered. The store manager was in the storage. The mom was in her 40s and the kid was about 11 to 13 years old. I say, "Hello, welcome to the tech store. How can I help you?"
Good afternoon. My son is looking for a keyboard.
I pointed to my left where the gaming products were, and there were mostly Razer products available. The others were sold out and the store didn't have much of the accessories. On that shelf, feel free to look around.
Thanks.
The entitled mother and the entitled esports kid walked over and I kept on filling the the cabinet. I heard some discussion from behind me, but I didn't bother to listen. Sometime later, I was done and I looked over to them. They were looking at the prices and thinking about it. I said, "Need some help?"
Yeah, I don't understand the difference between this black Ultimate Chroma and this Ornata Chroma. They look alike. Can you please tell me the difference?
The entitled esports kid chimed in and said,
Mom, the Black Widow is better. It's mechanical like I told you.
I told them, your son is right. The difference is that the Black Widow is mechanical and has a faster response time than the Ornata, which is mechanical. The Black Widow was also more expensive, but that is logical since it was mechanical. The entitled mother looked over to the entitled kid who was then smiling.
We'll take this one then.
The entitled mother walked to the register and I scanned the barcode. The keyboard was 129 euros. All right, ma'am, that will be 129 euros.
What do you mean? 130 euros for a piece of plastic? What the heck?
Calm down, ma'am. It's the normal price.
My son plays competitively. He needs this.
Really? What does he play? The entitled esports kid looked at me and said,
I play CSGO in a professional team.
I just looked at him, holding my laughter. This kid had just told me that he plays a K16 game professionally. It was hilarious. K16 is the equivalent of the ESRB rating, 14. I respond back sarcastically saying, oh really? What is the team name? The kid smiled more. His smile kind of looked like a troll face.
Our team is called Killer Bee Esports.
That's the name translated, of course. I just burst into laughter. This kid had just told me of a group that I didn't know of. Then while laughing, I said, hold on, I'll check. I looked up this team on my phone. I found a Steam group and I looked at it. One of the members was called Gay Swede Wiener 69. I was laughing so hard because the kid was so serious about being professional. I'm sorry, kid, but this gaming group is far from professional. Even if you were professionals, I couldn't give you this keyboard for free since you aren't sponsored by us. This store was a part of a chain. The mom was looking at me very angry, and then she said,
And what exactly are you laughing at? He is a professional gamer. He is good. I have watched him play. We need to get this for free. You are so rude, young man.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but he's not a professional. I see no awards or anything to reference any sort of esports activity. The entitled esports kid said,
I used to play for the 3D Max Juniors.
That doesn't exist and isn't even Finnish. I just laughed even harder. I couldn't help it. This kid was so bad at lying. Are you kidding me? Look at you. You're not old enough to play CSGO. Not professionally.
He's underage. That's your best argument. How old are you?
I'm 14.
You are 14 and you call my son underage? Shame on you.
It's my TET week, so it's part-time. The entitled mother was looking at her son with a weird smile, and the kid smiled back. She turned to me and said,
Well, I'll make a compromise. I will pay the full price.
I was getting suspicious from the tone of her voice, which had turned to a kind and soft voice, so I said, And
I get those headphones from the shelf.
Pointing to a pair of Razer Kraken 7.1S's, which are about 110 euros themselves,
For free.
I looked at her with an annoyed gaze and stayed quiet for a moment. Are you kidding me? You're asking for a keyboard and a headset for the price of one? I explained to her that we have some bundles sometimes, but you can't just make one out of thin air. She just looked at me, annoyed.
Let me speak to your manager.
Okay. I point to the security cameras and say, don't think of trying to leave. You have the cameras watching you. I walk into the warehouse and I call for the store manager, Pekka, to come and help me with a customer. Surprisingly, the entitled mother and the esports entitled kid hadn't left.
Hello, ma'am. I'm Pekka. What seems to be the problem?
Your part-time employee is rude to me and makes fun of my son.
That's not entirely true. She claimed her son is a professional gamer in a team and they are trying to get the equipment for free.
Ma'am, is this true?
No, he's lying.
The manager was just there looking at the angry mom, her kid, and me.
That's fine, ma'am. I'll check the camera recordings.
He said that and went into the security room, and sometime later he came out.
Sure, ma'am. I have to ask you to pay for the keyboard and leave.
What the frick? He is rude to me and my son. We need these for free. My son is traumatized after your behavior.
Ma'am, the other option is for you not to pay and leave without the keyboard.
The entitled mother just looked at him and hesitantly paid for the keyboard and was about to leave until she yelled from the door.
You lost a customer for life. I am not coming back here ever again.
Despite her actions, my work experience went well. I got good points for the work, and sometimes when I go into the store, I talk with Pekka about the pro player kid and we have a laugh. Surprisingly, the entitled mother nor the esports kid never visited the store ever again. So, was I the jerk for how I handled the situation? It obviously didn't help the situation that he burst out laughing because this kid said he was on a professional team for CSGO, but he wanted to call him out, so he did. It's just hilarious that the entitled mom here thought that she was making a compromise by agreeing to pay the full price only if they gave her the full €110 headphones as well. Maybe she just thought that nobody would ever want this stuff, so I'll take it off your hands. Kind of like the approach that some people go into garage sales with, where they say, hey, you have it out here for sale, you don't want it, so I'll take it off your hands if you just give it all to me for this price. But it's strange that she would do that in a retail shop, in a tech store, where normally you wouldn't bargain for anything if it's a new product. And one of the main reasons for that is because the person who's selling it to you has no say of whether or not they can do that, and also they don't make the money off the sale directly, so it doesn't really matter to them if the sale actually happens or not, unless there's commission involved. But the best rationale of all is, my son is a professional, therefore you should give it to him for free. Yeah, that works in all industries that have professionals in them. So let me know how you would handle this if you were the worker in this situation, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. My former co-workers are telling me that my old boss talks to them about, quote, all the issues that I'm having. I found out that my therapist is my old boss's husband. I started seeing a therapist a couple of months ago. Nothing wild, just general depression, winter weather getting to me, etc. It's been very helpful until recently. In the last few days, 2 of my old coworkers called me to say that my old boss was saying things like, OP basically hates herself now. I heard she's not doing well, really depressed. These were phone calls, and I didn't record anything because it was so unexpected. My old boss fired me in June of 2017. We didn't get along. General underperformance, no misconduct, just obviously didn't leave on great terms. At first, I thought it might be a friend of mine divulging things to another friend in the industry, but then after looking up said old boss, I see that her husband is my therapist, a very common last name, so I never realized they were related. I realized this is obviously problematic with a therapist, but I'm not sure what to do about it. He practices out of a leased single office space, so there's no overarching practice / management / administration to report to. I also don't know if what my old boss is saying is getting into legal issues or if it's just, well, rude. I still live in the same city and work the same type of job in a rather small / close-knit industry. So on one hand, I'm worried about word traveling around our small community, but on the other hand, I'm worried about bad blood if I make too much of a fuss. Please help. A small edit from the future, I'm now feeling reasonably confident about where to start with a therapist. Thank you. However, I feel completely lost about what to do about my old boss. Contact HR and the old employer? Hope it just dies down? At this point, I have no proof that I could show. Just saying I got phone calls, and I don't really want to pit my old coworkers against their boss if that can be avoided. Jumping into the future, there is an update. So my old boss was telling my old team that I was having a ton of issues. I found out my therapist is her husband, but I didn't know how she was finding this out / to what degree each person was doing bad stuff. That's what happened so far. The new development summary is there's still a lot of slow / bureaucratic stuff going on, but the most satisfying news is that my therapist is no longer practicing. I even saw the space that he practiced out of listed for sale on a real estate website while doing my own house hunting. The therapist was chatting about a client, me, to his wife, my old boss, that it seemed he didn't really know was his wife's old employee. Large company, closely knit, but not minuscule industry. I have a very peculiar family dynamic, so I think he talked about that. However, enough bits and pieces of identifying information came up that she suspected it was me. Unbeknownst to him, she found my paper records in his office and dug through them. Then thought it was a great idea to tell my old coworkers that I was depressed and had family issues. Neat. One of my coworkers put in her 2 weeks because of a relocating spouse shortly after, then agreed to write a formal statement of what she had heard, which also helped a lot. Understandably, no one else was willing to because the company's already laid off so many people in the last year. Resolution in progress. The therapist seems to be less in the wrong than I thought he was, though still in the wrong. The old boss is still awful. The therapist is likely to receive some sort of reprimanding for both talking to his wife about me in that level of detail, as well as insecure record keeping. I don't know if he'll practice ever again. So am I the jerk for how things turned out? The therapist might actually end up losing his entire career over this, it sounds like. And if that ends up happening, I can't imagine there's not going to be some sort of resentment between him and his wife, because he's probably going to see it as her being careless and just telling random people things that he told her in private. That's the kind of thing that can lead to a divorce. But all of that aside, talking about it in the first place is a huge violation of privacy. The OP here is obviously going here to say something in private to someone that she is paying for a service, and then he's going out and telling other people. And even if that usually leads to nothing, in this case it led to something because the wife was able to tell who he was talking about based on some of the details. And she didn't even leave it at that. She actually went into his files, confirmed that it was about the OP, and then told everybody. So the therapist violated the OP's privacy by talking about it in the first place. The wife violated the therapist's privacy by going through all of his things. It's an awful situation where against your will, all these other people know your personal business. I know for most people that would make them pretty mad. But if this was you in this situation, how would you handle it? Let me know down below in jerk or not a jerk and why. My coworker adopted a kid from the Ukraine a couple of years ago. Now she's going around asking us to adopt him and writing about giving him away on Facebook. So my coworker is kind of a weirdo. I'll call her Mary for the sake of this post. Her and her husband are one of those people that have a ton of adopted kids, 8 so far, and are super religious, to each his own. Mary enjoys telling everyone at work her business, so when she decided to adopt a kid from the Ukraine, everyone heard about it. She went with an older kid because it was easier for her and her husband, she says. This was 2 years ago. Mary has asked me to babysit the boy a couple of times. I'll call him Tony, and it's never been a problem because I like kids. I didn't see any glaring problems besides Mary's constant dramatics about how awful the kid was, and he seemed to like being over. It's just me and my boyfriend here, and our place is small but clean and really well kept. Mary's house is disgusting, for lack of a better word. Mary would constantly harp about how much Tony liked it at our house, but I just chalked it up to the kid having a good time. Lately, Mary has been in work talking to anyone that'll listen about how awful Tony is, how horrible he is to the other kids, and how she is going to get rid of him. She sent out a mass email to everyone in our department asking if someone wanted to take her kid from her. She calls it rehoming, and that it's okay. I logged onto Facebook today and same story. She has pictures of Tony posted to her timeline, advertising him for readoption and to contact her if interested. I haven't replied to her email yet, and I haven't commented on her post, but I'm this close to ripping into her for what she's doing. She's crossed the line from weird into full-blown psycho. Should I call CPS? I called the police just now and they sounded completely confused on what to do. They agreed to do a welfare check. The post is still up. Is this really legal? I don't know much about adoption, and a quick search for rehoming gets me mostly results about animals. Does anyone have any advice? Quick edit. Poop has hit the fan. There is mass insanity right now, but I'll have an update for everyone tonight. Most importantly, the kids are safe. Update from the future. Now that the dust has settled a bit, I'm honestly kind of overwhelmed by the number of people that went to huge lengths to tell me about just how serious this situation was/is, deep dived on resources, etc. I got private messages from people who worked for local and state governments and private agencies that were outside of my state but offered their contacts. I had people that spoke Russian and Ukrainian offering up help to contact the Ukrainian embassy and offered me contact information from embassy departments. People even contacted us offering money for Tony's immediate needs in the event that we decided to take him in. I am sincerely touched by the genuine concern all of you had for Tony and his siblings. I hope one day I can tell Tony that despite everything that's happened, there's people out there like you guys that care about him. The information you guys gave us helped us act fast and got the ball rolling on the situation faster than me and my boyfriend would have figured out alone. I talked with the cops about the situation, and honestly, they were just as confused as I was. The person I talked to on the phone was just as stumped, but he agreed that at a minimum, they did need to do a welfare check. I've had experiences with welfare checks before, and I had the nagging feeling that something just wouldn't go right. Someone private messaged me the priority line for my state's CPS hotline. I got someone on the phone right away, and as soon as I mentioned that trafficking could be going on and that she was advertising the kid on Facebook, it was a public post here too, people, know, they acted with a quickness. I gave them all the information I had on Mary and Tony and all the information I had from Mary about Tony's adoption. The person I spoke to right away said that she suspected that the adoption might not even be legal. I was floored. I emailed all the screenshots I had to the person I spoke with and asked for a follow-up if that was at all possible. I said that myself and my boyfriend were willing to take Tony on a temporary basis if necessary, but the CPS representative said that that likely wasn't possible. Then the waiting game began. Last night was probably the most stressful night I've ever had. Hell at one point. I was ready to drive out to Mary's house myself, but was stopped by my boyfriend. It was tough. The cops followed up with us at approximately 2 a.m. Note that I haven't heard from CPS. The officer I spoke with was very cautious and limited in what he said, but he told me that CPS arrived at the home shortly after he did. In not so many words, he implied that Mary had been talking to someone about meeting Tony the very next day, and that CPS's suspicions were confirmed. Tony's adoption was not legal. Tony was rehomed to Mary and her husband from another state where placement needs to be approved by a judge. He didn't elaborate further except to say that other issues came to light and all of the children were removed from the home for their own safety. He didn't say how long they were there, but said it was a long time. I was asked to drop off all emails and printouts to the station in the morning, and I agreed. My boyfriend and I wanted to make doubly sure that all of our bases were checked, so I called our local FBI office, who said they lacked jurisdiction in the matter but would be writing up a complaint and referring the issue to the State Department. We called the Ukrainian embassy and made a detailed complaint, and I included the contact information I had for the officer from the department. That's when it really hit the fan. The moment I went into work to print out the email. Our company is pretty small, and the company owner, I'll call her Big Ange because of her resemblance to the mob wives lady, she had gotten wind of Mary's email. Big Ange was furious and waiting at Mary's desk to see if she would show up for work. My friend reported that Big Ange waited from 7:15 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. and that Mary came to work with a sob story about how her kids were being unfairly taken away. Mary wanted time off from work to clear her name and devote herself to reclaiming her family from this misunderstanding. I wasn't there to witness this, but Big Ange, who has 6 kids herself, apparently ripped Mary a new one. Mary has been dismissed, and rumor has it that Big Ange may or may not allow her to claim unemployment. My head is honestly still spinning from everything that has happened. The past 24 hours have been insanity. I am so grateful that the system worked as quickly as it did. I only hope there's a long-term solution to this problem and that Mary doesn't get to reclaim her kids. My heart is breaking for Tony and the other kids right now. I don't know what is happening in Mary's house that made them get removed that night, but I'm going to sleep better knowing that they aren't with Psycho Mary and her husband. At least not for a while. What the future holds for Tony and the other kids, especially because Tony's adoption was apparently illegal, makes me sick, but I'm going to wish for the best. What should I do? I think that is the biggest question in the short term. What is it that they found in the house that night that made them act so urgently that they got all the kids to safety right away? We already know that, as the OP describes here, Mary's house is disgusting, so it could be something as simple as that. The cops walked in and said, "These are unlivable conditions, this is disgusting in here," and took all of them out of there. Or maybe it was something much darker. We really don't know. I'm sure a lot of you guys have theories on what it could be, so let me know down below what you think it might be. But this is just a strange situation. I've never heard of somebody adopting a kid, not fostering them, but adopting them. I'm sure this does happen, but it probably doesn't happen on Facebook. It probably happens through some sort of official means where you're not just handing them off to a random person on your Facebook. How could that have even worked anyway? Even if they did say yes, I doubt it's like signing over a pink slip to a car and saying, okay, you own this car now, you own this person now. There's got to be a lot more red tape than that. But maybe she was just waiting until he turned of age and then it would all fade away and everything that happened before wouldn't matter. It's just such a weird thought process, but let me know how you see the situation down below and what advice would you offer? My boss went into retirement and replaced himself with his evil son. His son tried making moves on me, tried to go out with me, tried to sleep with me, and then later when I wouldn't, tried to fire me. This is the story of how I got my revenge, got a huge payday, and destroyed this business. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. First, some background. A bit over 6 months months prior to the start of this story, we had a change up at the company that I worked for. The old owner was a great guy and was retiring, so he was handing off the company to his son, a real jerk just out of business school type. The son, with the mentality that this company was now his, went about restructuring, namely reassigning teams to different projects and leaving those that remained in their old positions to pick up double, if not triple, the workload. He did all of this in the name of saving a little bit of money. Unfortunately, my department, safety and engineering, of which I was the team lead, was not spared from this effort. In the end, I had it out with the boss and the department head, ultimately costing the company 3 months of my entire department working 80+ hour weeks and forcing a huge year-end bonus to be paid out to us. Unfortunately, after my initial meeting with the new boss, i.e. the son, he took a liking to me in a really bad way. Essentially, he really liked me and wanted to go out with me or sleep with me, however you want to put it. He even enlisted his friends and secretaries to help him. It went on for months. It was just blatant harassment. They even made comments about me losing my late husband, that I should get back on the horse, so to speak. I kept everything, every email, every voicemail, and I went to my best friend who happens to be a really good lawyer, a contract lawyer to be exact. So not exactly their area of expertise, but they knew enough to help. This friend drafted a letter to the boss, essentially a stop or we're going to start a big case over this kind of thing. And yeah, everything stopped. However, I was then moved from working in office to a work from home arrangement. I knew that was coming. They were going to do their best to get rid of me, so I started documenting everything. But as luck would happen, I received an email chain from the bosses. A good friend of mine in the office who was in the email chain added me to the CC list, and wouldn't you know it, it was a back and forth communication of them discussing how they would get rid of me and pin the blame on me. The email chain was disgusting. Just disgusting. They hated me so badly and wanted me gone, but because of my contract, they would have to buy me out. But being the cheapskates that they are, you know they wanted me gone for free. So the company bosses started a campaign to try and torment me. They first tried to say that because now I work from home, they were required to install cameras in my home office to make sure that I was being productive. Luckily, that did not work. You gotta love contracts. They also tried assigning an impossible workload to me, but luckily my team and I were almost like family and they picked up the slack. After 3 months of this, I get an email and a phone call from the HR department saying that I was getting laid off indefinitely because there was just no work for me. This was complete nonsense given that we had several dozen projects we were working on. As a side note, in Ontario, there is no such thing as a layoff. In the court's eyes, being laid off is considered an active dismissal, which is essentially the same as being fired. After this conversation with HR, I call my lawyer friend almost in tears, just shouting, "Look at what they're doing to me, help." She calms me down and tells me, "This is such a good thing. We have so much evidence against them." I had already forwarded and printed off everything that was sent to me, and it was lucky I did because a scant few hours after I was laid off, my computer was remotely wiped clean. Everything was gone, just leaving a blank desktop. When I called the HR department to get copies of all my filed complaints, what do you know? Everything was gone. In their place was a bunch of nonsense reprimands that never happened, that I never signed or saw, dating months and months back, and all signed by the new boss despite the fact that they were dated before he ever took control of the company. It was clear they were total nonsense, but I got copies of everything to add to my stack of records. I texted all my old colleagues to let them know what was happening and that I am basically gone. Like I said earlier, we were like family, and with me on the way out, they started looking for better employment. Not only that, but they contacted all their friends who worked for the company to do the same. I was laid off on a Monday, and on Thursday I walked into the office with my employment lawyer. I swear the main secretary was on the phone to security the second she saw me walk in, and they were at the door in a matter of minutes. My lawyer simply handed her a legal document, a summons to meet for a mediation at his office on the next Friday. During the following week, I received so many calls and text messages from the bosses, friends, secretaries, and people I knew in the office to just be friendly with the owner, to just drop it, and that they wanted to bring me back and forget about everything. Like hell, I was going back to such a hostile work environment. Friday finally comes, and into my lawyer's office, my former boss walks in with a squad of 4 lawyers to settle the matter. Right off the bat, he offers me 3-month severance to end all of this because I didn't have any evidence to rebut the fake paperwork they had on file. At this point, my lawyer starts to bring out all the paperwork we had, namely copies of every complaint I had ever filed, which were all signed by the bosses, HR, and myself. Luckily for our case, case, I had made sure to take a copy of each complaint when it was written up. They didn't think I had anything. Oh boy, were they wrong. My lawyer made the case in court that it would be obvious that all the paperwork they had on their end were forgeries. Nothing was signed by me. And he pointed out that there were dates with the boss's signature where he wasn't even in the country, let alone working for the company yet. At that point, the boss and his lawyers went to speak privately. After about half an hour, they came back with a much better offer, a full year's salary. But my lawyer responded with, no, we'll just go with what the contract says, plus go for damages in court. Given the recent changeover at the company, the lawyers seemed to know that they couldn't afford this going to court, not to mention that it would be so bad for the company's reputation. So they basically rolled over and asked, what do you want? We demanded 5 years salary plus the average bonus I would have made for each year, plus all the legal fees paid. It was a big win, but it didn't end there. I got a taste of blood and I wanted more. I made phone calls to several companies where I had contacts and found jobs for every member of my team and several members of other teams. By the end of the week, the company lost 10 of its most talented people. Not to mention, most of those people had friends and colleagues that ended up following them to their new employers. The fallout was pretty bad. Before all of this, they had their pick of the litter when new university students graduated. But now, because they had lost almost all their senior people, they had no one to mentor new employees. Plus, word got out fast how they treat workers like crap. So no one with any talent would even think of getting near the company. As of today, the company is just a shell of its former self. It's still big, but it bleeds money. They also now have a problem with permanent staffing and are paying out the nose to hire subcontractors. Let's just say they don't make money like they used to. In fact, they have not started any new projects in something like 9 months. If something isn't done on the side of the management to improve things fast, they will likely be going bankrupt in the very near future. So, am I the jerk for essentially destroying this company and getting 5 years of salary as a payout to me because the new owner kept making his advances on me? So from the sounds of it, this son obviously had no idea how to run a business. He probably watched this business being run from the sidelines his entire life, but never actually learned how to run the business. As if his dad was just a dumb guy that didn't see all these obvious methods to increase the bottom line, but all of those methods, at least from this example, ended up hurting the company in the long run. It's a very short-sighted way of thinking, and he probably thought he was really smart for doing it, but then in the end, he ended up losing more money because he forced that entire department to work 80+ hour weeks, which meant that a huge year-end bonus had to be paid out to them. So in the end, was it worth doing that? Probably not, and there was probably a reason why it was done the way that it was before. But when it comes to the whole attack on the OP here, that's not even the guy trying to be business savvy. That's just some weird mental power trip type of thing, because he probably thinks I'm the boss now, so therefore you'll date me because I like you. It kind of makes me think of the guard in prison experiment where everyone just ends up assuming their roles, and this is the role that he became and immediately started taking advantage of the power that he had. But luckily the OP understood that immediately and started defending herself, putting up these barriers and collecting all the evidence she needed in the event that things would go south like they eventually ended up going. And she really did go for it, getting the 5 years of salary, and that's after the lawyer's fee is already taken care of. Wasn't even enough for the revenge. She went even further than that. I think most people probably couldn't even fathom a reality where you got paid a salary for 5 years and you didn't have to go to work. I think for almost everyone that would be life-changing. You could do so many things you always wanted to do during that time. But if you ended up getting that yourself, let me know how you would spend your 5 years. And also, do you think the OP was justified, jerk, or not a jerk, and why? Don't forget to subscribe to the second channel linked down below where you can hear all of my personal stories if you're interested in that. I do reviews on YouTube. I received a cease and desist after the publisher reached out for ways to improve. Hello, now I am not some big reviewer. I barely have 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I do it more as a hobby and not anywhere near a job. Recently, I posted a review about a newly released game. It was very critical on a lot of points in the game, but nowhere was I saying anything that was a lie. For some crazy reason, this video received a massive influx of views compared to my normal 8 to 13,000 views. This one received over 1.6 million views. The publisher reached out to me and wanted some of my personal opinions on how to improve the game and what they could do to make it more enjoyable. I was ecstatic and extremely happy that the company wanted my opinion of all people on what to improve or to change. I was assuming they reached out to a lot of people to get a pool of ideas and maybe hopefully implement them and improve the game. Towards the end of our emails, they asked for my name and address to mail out some swag for my time and effort in the emails. I sent probably several pages of ideas and issues, etc. So I I thought, cool, a poster or something would be nice. Today I received a certified letter that contains a cease and desist about the game, claiming if I continue to spread false information and affect sales, I will be sued. It also demanded that I remove the review immediately. I've privated the video but have yet to actually delete it. What can I do here? Are my opinions on a game not protected, or can I actually be sued for this? A small edit from the future. I will not be making the video public again until I have more solid information. I will also not be making a follow-up video, as I do not want to poke a bear. I cannot afford an attorney to fight even a frivolous lawsuit. My state of Colorado does not have anti-SLAAP laws. I've emailed EFF and a few other attorneys who specialize in the industry and hope to hear back. I'm also not going to link my YouTube channel. I'm not here for subs or views, just for advice. Jumping into the future, there is an update. So it's been an interesting 2 months after my post. I started contacting a few attorneys locally and eventually had to call the state bar for a referral because of the type of possible laws not a lot of people handle, since most lawyers out here do family or criminal law. I finally found an attorney that understood what I was talking about and wanted a link to the post and agreed with the majority of the top advice that I received. He accepted a small retainer of $250 to respond to the cease and desist that I received and a few possible future letters/calls. He responded asking them exactly what statements I made that were false and requested exact times in the videos that the statements were made. Since I previously privated the video, we had to give them a different link. He also outlined what will happen should they continue stating that during discovery. He will be requesting all communication between QA, playtesting, developers, and management to see if they were aware of any of these bugs/issues that may compromise a customer's experience while playing. It also included a paragraph basically calling them out for reaching out to me and lying about swag and wanting feedback to get my information to send me a cease and desist instead of going through the proper legal channels to obtain this, and the fact that I still have yet to receive any swag shows that this is clearly the case. Also included that they need to preserve all the emails they sent to other reviewers because it's of interest in the possible upcoming legal action. He also requested that they preserve all sorts of other communication between QA, developers, etc. So after he had confirmed receipt of the letter, we waited and waited. Nothing for about a month, but then I received 3 large boxes containing games, posters, statues, a custom PS4 limited edition console, bobbleheads, Funko Pops, and just every piece of swag I think they have for their 3 or 4 games, and a letter saying, "Sorry it took so long for us to get this swag out to you." My attorney then sent out another letter asking about the status and their position on the cease and desist, and we received a letter back with only a few sentences basically saying that they made a mistake and we can expect no further correspondence on the matter and that the video can be reinstated if we so wish. He then sent out another letter asking about the lost ad revenue due to me having to private the video since they admitted that it was a mistake. They sent out a check for $500 and some papers that I needed to sign basically saying that the issue is over and I won't sue them. Thank you to everyone for all your advice. I didn't get sued, and after it all, I came out ahead. I'm still not going to link my channel or the video or name the company in question, but thanks for all your help. So, who was the jerk and how would you have handled this? It's sad that this company probably never would have dropped this whole situation or suddenly remembered to send all this swag if the guy didn't get the lawyer involved. Stories like these are what make people always so trigger happy to lawyer up the first chance they get. Because if it happened to this OP, then it's probably happened to other reviewers out there. And this company was just getting away with it. If you really give them the benefit of the doubt, it could have been somebody within the company that went rogue and just kind of sent this off without getting an approval from anyone else in the company. Sometimes it's hard to know if what you're receiving from a company actually represents what the whole company thinks or it's just that person. As soon as they got this letter from the lawyer, they probably realized they were immediately in the wrong. And then not only did they ultimately say you could put the video back up, they paid for the money lost in the process, gave him all the swag you could want and this limited edition PlayStation, and just wanted to be done with it. So let me know how you would have handled the situation if you were the YouTube reviewer yourself, and jerk or not a jerk, and why. My dad's girlfriend is trying to get rid of me. I'm a 15-year-old girl, and my dad, who's 43, has a girlfriend that is trying to get rid of me. My mom passed away 5 years ago, and I think of her every day. My dad went through a really bad depression, and I had to take care of myself, basically. During the Christmas holidays, my dad told me that he had been seeing someone for a while. while. I noticed he was happier, and I guess I was happy for him. I didn't want him to be lonely forever, but I did feel like my mom was being erased completely. He never wanted to talk about her, and he got rid of all pictures with her in them. He said that his girlfriend will be spending Christmas with us and then moving in. I wasn't happy at all. I don't even know her, but I didn't say anything. I met her on Christmas, and usually my dad and I put the star on the tree that day. We would put the star on the tree and watch The Grinch. It's our tradition, and we kept it even when we were grieving my mom. It's the only tradition from when she was with us that we actually kept. When his girlfriend came over, he put the star on with her while I was in the bathroom. Also, we didn't watch The Grinch because she hates it. I know I sound spoiled and childish, but I was so angry. We've been doing this my whole life, and she just came in and destroyed it. The whole night, she didn't even bother to get to know me at all. She was all over my dad and pretty much ignored me. I told my dad about how upset I was about our tradition, and he said I should grow up and that things change. I didn't like her because she gave me a bad feeling, so I never got close to her. She complained to my dad about it, and he got mad at me for not making her feel welcomed. I felt bad because she makes my dad really happy, so I tried being more friendly with her. In front of my dad, she was nice to me, but when we were alone, she ignored me or spoke to me with attitude. She even told me that I was a brat and I make my dad's life harder. I told him, but he didn't believe me and yelled at me for trying to sabotage his relationship. He said that I wanted him to die alone and be sad that I was selfish. I was so shocked because none of it is true. My dad basically treated me like I wasn't there at all after that. I felt like I did when my mom died, all alone. I stayed up really late one night because I just couldn't sleep and I wanted to sneak in a midnight snack. The girlfriend was in the kitchen on FaceTime, so I decided to be nosy and listened. She was talking about my dad and how much she loves him. Then she said that he had this, quote, dumb daughter, and she wondered if it was too late for adoption. Her and her friend laughed at that. She said that I was a little bee and she hated me. Her friend then said something about boarding school or military school, but I left, so I didn't hear the rest. I was so exhausted from all the crying I did, so I actually slept. I didn't tell my dad, and I don't even know if I should since he probably won't believe me. I really miss my mom. I kind of just want to go live with my grandparents, my mom's parents, but I don't want my dad to think that I'm leaving him. What do I do? Can I even do anything? How do I get my dad to listen to me? Would I be wrong for leaving? Jumping into the future, there is an update. Since my last post, I spoke to my grandparents and told them everything. I asked if I could stay with them if I wanted to, and they agreed. I then spoke to my dad again and tried to tell him how I felt and what I had heard. I didn't want to film or record because I knew that he would be mad at that and wouldn't listen. He didn't believe me again and thought that I was jealous of having to share him with someone else. I got upset and I told him that I was leaving so he could live happily ever after without the burden of having me around. He looked shocked but didn't say anything. I had already packed my bags and had brought some things to my grandparents' house. My dad didn't speak to me for the rest of the day. My grandfather picked me up and I've been there since. I haven't gone home and I haven't heard from my dad. My grandparents told me that they would handle my dad and that I shouldn't have to be the one doing it. I'm upset that my dad hasn't called or texted me once to see if I'm okay. At the same time, I'm feeling so much better being with my grandparents. My grandmother is probably the sweetest person ever, and my grandfather is a little rough around the edges, but he's really a softie. Jumping into the future again, there's a final update. My dad came to visit me at my grandparents' place to talk to me. He brought his girlfriend with him. He said, "My girlfriend and I have been talking and we decided that it's best if you stay here." My dad said that I can come clean out my room completely and he'll help. He also said that after I get my things, we should also take a break from each other and reevaluate things in a few months or however long this takes. His girlfriend then said something about how she'll take care of my dad for me. In a few days, I'll be going over with my grandparents to get my stuff. We'll also be getting the important papers that some of you have mentioned. It doesn't look like I'll be going home anytime soon. I have a new home now, I guess. To be honest, I have been feeling pretty bad about some of the comments, specifically the ones saying that since I probably remind him of my mom, that's why he's like that with me. He got rid of everything of my mom's, and I was the last piece of my mom, so it makes sense that he doesn't want me anymore. I really wish that he was still here. I think he wants to start over, and that I wasn't a part of that plan, so I guess that's it. Am I the jerk? I honestly did not expect that outcome. I thought somehow the dad would come to his senses and realize that he was neglecting the OP, his daughter, and try and have a human connection with her, but instead he just says, "Okay, you stay here now, pack up your stuff, let's not talk about anything, let's not address what my girlfriend said on the phone about getting rid of you, you can just be gone now." Most of the time when people say statements like, "he doesn't want me anymore," it's usually some sort sort of exaggeration or they're being dramatic about it, but honestly, that is kind of the sentiment that the dad is conveying by his actions. He would probably never describe it like that or even see it like that himself, but what else would you call this? Dealing with grief is a very complex thing, and a lot of times there is collateral damage to the people that you love the most. And the dad might not realize that he made the OP the collateral damage in this case in this exact moment, but in the future he'll probably look back and realize that and maybe be regretful. And from the OP's perspective, she may look back in the past and be resentful. In both scenarios, if this isn't sorted out, it's something both of them are going to look back on and not remember fondly. But realistically, the only one that can change this, the only one that has the power to do so, is the dad, despite being burdened with what sounds like immense grief. So if you were the OP in this situation, how do you think you would handle all of this? Let me know down below in jerk or not a jerk and why.
When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.